This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with James O'Brien.
It is 3 minutes after 10. A very good morning indeed to you. So, crash courses, isn't it? Crash courses. Thanks to Liz Truss and Rachel Reeves, I actually now have a much better understanding of the bond markets than I did before. I'm not even being facetious or sarcastic. I really do. One perhaps overlooked element of what has happened in the aftermath of yesterday's extraordinary events in the House of Commons is that the markets responded in precisely the opposite way to how they responded to Liz Truss. It was the thought that Rachel Reeves might not be hanging on to her job as Chancellor that scared the horses. It's debt. Essentially, the government's perceived ability to service its debts affects the amount of interest that they pay on those debts or bonds. And the idea that if Rachel Reeves were not to be remaining in the Treasury, then that perception would deteriorate. We'd look like a less safe bet as a country for the bond markets that prompted the run that has been reflected in the news today. That's not me speculating, and neither is it an opinion. It's actually counting. But I'm more than happy to confess that I didn't really understand these matters until Liz Truss set fire to the mechanisms that Rachel Reeves is trusted by the markets to protect. But I mentioned a moment ago in my run-up at the end of Nick's show that I'm at my least confident on days like today, and I can't, there's not really anywhere I can look to for guidance or inspiration except you. That's true every day, but on days like today it's particularly true. I would, and I don't know if this makes me casually sexist, but my reaction to the sight of a woman crying is different from what my reaction would be if it was a man, I think. I'm not callous. I would feel enormous empathy and sympathy if a man had been crying in the front bench of the House of Commons yesterday. But I think the way I was raised or the way that I'm wired prompts a slightly different reaction. And by way of illustration, almost immediately, I find myself feeling protective and thinking, should we even be talking about this? That was a mistake. I said to Natasha Clark, our political editor, who is at the Prime Minister's press conference at the moment and will join us later to tell us what's been going on there with regards to the latest plan for the NHS. But I said to Natasha off-air, once I'd been sent the footage of the tear rolling down her cheek, the screen is too far away from me in the studio for me to have spotted it myself, and I was too busy nattering to Natasha and listening to what the Prime Minister and Kemi Badenoch was saying. But when a colleague sent through the footage of a tear it unmistakably rolling down the Chancellor's cheek, I found myself wondering if we should ignore it, which is proof once again of how appalling my news sense is. But on this occasion, I'd defend myself on the grounds of empathy and sympathy. The idea that we would be able to ignore... just think for a minute how ridiculous you'd look if you ignored the fact that the Chancellor of the Exchequer was crying on the front bench in the House of Commons. Not only would I look ridiculous, I'd also be incredibly lonely as the rest of the country's media weighed in from various angles with various degrees of sympathy and empathy, but most categorically did not ignore it. But that was my initial oh dear, I don't know if we should be talking about that poor thing. And for the record, I would be exactly the same if it had been Kemi Badenoch or Suella Braverman or even Nadine Dorries crying on the front bench of a Tory government. It's a human reaction, and if you find yourself not feeling those human reactions, then unfortunately it says more about you than it does about the people that you are reacting to. And that's why I'm not quite sure that the question that I want to ask you today is entirely appropriate. If you didn't see it, if you've somehow missed the detail, obviously this is the radio, so I can't show you. But I think that we spotted it immediately, Natasha and I, that she looked absolutely broken. Downing Street have gone to some lengths, and obviously in the eyes of some Tory ticklers, they're completely wasting their time and energy. They've gone to some length, and other front benchers have confirmed that unless you were checking your phone and somebody was telling you that Rachel Reeves was crying, you wouldn't have known if you were sitting next to her. you would have been focused, as the Prime Minister was, on what was going on in front of you, on the moment. But of course, they do often check their phones in the chamber, possibly not on the front bench, but certainly on the back benches. And that is, I mean, the very simple and somewhat boring explanation, as Nigel Farage understands this perfectly, even though he pretends otherwise, as to why Keir Starmer didn't reach out. Was it Farage who claimed someone he was having a squabble with was suffering from dementia not long ago, one of his own MPs? So a masterclass there in empathy, concern and putting an arm around people. I'm sure he was picked up on that earlier. Well, I'll check the tape. So you find yourself also wondering whether it's even appropriate to talk about the stuff that we don't know about. It was revealed fairly quickly afterwards as speculation about her job grew, that it was a personal matter. And that could mean anything. And that's the point at which anybody decent sort of calls off the dogs. Of course, people who are not decent do the opposite. Did you see the exchange between Kemi Badenoch's spokesperson and journalists? I've never seen anything like it in all my years of covering politics. In fact, I saw someone, I forget who it was, but a former civil servant, a former advisor, saying, I've worked in SW1, I've met all of these, I've encountered some truly hideous people over my years working in politics, but I am shocked by what just happened in the lobby. And it was Kemi Badenoch's spokesperson saying, I think we should wrap these questions up nice and quickly so you can go and find out what the hell is actually going on, because there is something very strange going on and personal matter doesn't really clear it. To which a journalist replies, well, how do you know? And the spokesperson said, well, we need to know what's going on. You normally tell people what the personal matter is. To which Adam Bienkov quite rightly pointed out, well, then it wouldn't be a personal matter, would it? It becomes a public matter immediately. But it didn't cut any mustard with Kemi Badenoch's spokesperson talking about and then listen to this for someone who's really on top of their brief. When the Prime Minister's father died at Christmas, brother died at Christmas, when Kemi Badenoch's father died a couple of years ago, you tell them what the personal matter is. I'm just saying the personal matter could also be that she, and there it is. You would be urging, said another journalist, the Chancellor to come clean on what was going on in her extraordinary, really, to simply state publicly you have no right to privacy at all. I don't think now, and this is where that's hideous. That's obviously any institution, any organisation eventually remoulds itself in the image of the person at the very top. So Kemi Badenoch's inhumanity filtering right through even to relatively junior members of staff like her official spokesperson, and it's hideous to see, but we are somewhat inured to it. We can kind of see it. But even there, I'm speculating. So I'm persuaded now that there isn't going to be a bereavement or anything particularly sad and horrible for her to reveal to the small number of people who apparently think that she has a responsibility to do so. I think watching it, I think she just boiled over. Hasn't happened to me for years. But at the time I remember it happening most, oddly enough, was during play rehearsals, when we'd be doing like 14, 15 hours of play rehearsal the day before a play opened, when we were categorically not ready. And you'd reach a point of exhaustion where anything could set you off. It looked to me as if she was simply carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. And for that moment, it got a bit much. It got a bit much. And the problem I have now, or the problem we have now, is that you won't believe me when I say that if Kemi Badenoch had been displaying emotion in such a harrowing fashion, my impulse of... Well, actually, if you listen to the programme on a regular basis with open ears, you will believe me, because you will know that it's true. And I think it would be true of the massive majority of people listening. It's an almost visceral, it's a reflex reaction to somebody else's anguish, somebody else's pain. And that's not a left-right thing. Plenty of people on the left who absolutely... I even felt sorry for Liz Truss, actually, towards the end of her tenure. It just looked... I feel quite sorry for her now. But that's more delusion, isn't it? A sympathy for delusion than it is empathy with obvious suffering. She, I guess, has never acknowledged that she is suffering, even though it's plain to outsiders that she is. So it's a different flavour of empathy. It's a different flavour of sympathy. And I would feel it for any politician. I'd feel it for almost anybody in public life. And I feel it more for a woman than I would for a man. I don't know if that's something to be addressed or something that I need to work on or not. It's easy to say that the Chancellor of the Exchequer should be in better control of her emotions. But again, I find the loss of control of emotions moving. I find it something that makes me instinctively warm to a person. And I think what we saw was a reflection of just how much pressure the Chancellor of the Exchequer is under. I really do. But I'm just one person, and I suffer from all the foibles and frailties that everybody else suffers from as well, including on occasion a little slice of footballification. That's why I'm at great pains to stress that I think we'd respond similarly, regardless of the person's politics. If you saw somebody suffering in that way, you would you'd instinctively reach out in an emotional sense. So, how did you respond to it? I just want to talk to you today. I want you to talk to me as if we were sitting next to each other at a bus stop or having a cup of tea in the staff canteen. I want to know how you responded to it. And how the Chancellor emerges from this moment, whether she emerges with more sympathy than she went into it or less, perhaps. I don't know, but there it is. I've told you my feelings. I've told you my position on it, and now I'd like you to tell me yours. And I mean, we can introduce an element of conversation around the idea of whether or not we should even be having this conversation at all. But I think we have to. I mean, if she'd been filmed in a restaurant surreptitiously by a long lens camera, then my instinct would be not to go anywhere near it. That would, again, not be something observed by the rest of the media, but it would become a matter of conscience, wouldn't it, for you and for me to decide whether that's something that we should be encroaching upon, that personal space should be encroached upon. But it didn't happen in a restaurant or in the back seat of a car that someone had stuck a camera through the window of. It happened in the House of Commons. It happened in Parliament. It happened on the front bench. It happened in live and glorious Technicolor, and it was pretty horrible to watch. So how did you respond to it? I think it's if not an important conversation to have, then certainly an interesting one and possibly an illuminating one. Okay, 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. It is unprecedented. I can't think of anything to compare it to. The Chancellor of the Exchequer cried in the House of Commons yesterday. What do you make of that? It's a fairly simple question to ask, but I'll be interested to see how easy it is to answer. And listen, I can't tell you to be nice, because if your reaction is mean and nasty, that is as valid and as authentic as reactions that are not mean and nasty. So I want to know how you reacted to it. And you can tell me on 0345 6060 973.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Minutes after 10 is the time. Things that I like to tease you with and then we'll probably forget to tell you the truth about before the end of the programme, chapter 366. I've done something on the programme recently, and you've quite possibly heard it, you've quite possibly witnessed it, that if I had done it at work to a colleague, I could have been fined or penalised to the tune of £15,000. Can you remember what it was? I think it was only last week or the week before. So I have done something at work relatively recently that would get me into trouble at an employment tribunal if I had done it to a colleague as opposed to a caller. There's another one as well. A couple of weeks ago, it was found that calling a mixed group of colleagues lads was sexist and therefore open to allegations of discrimination, and someone got fined for that as well. And I've done that to you. I've said, oh, come on, lads. It's quite an Irish thing to do. I think your average Irish person would find it incredible that it was somehow considered sexist, albeit that lads is a male term, technically. And if you address females using male terms, then you are open to that criticism. But I don't think an employment tribunal in Ireland would have found what the one in England found. But I wonder if you can remember what it was I did relatively. I may give you a clue later, and in fact then I'll play out the little clip of me doing something that would get me into trouble at an employment tribunal if I'd done it to a colleague rather than a caller. Amanda is in Hatfield to open the conversation about Rachel Reeves and the extraordinary scenes in the House of Commons yesterday. Amanda, what would you like to say?
Hi. Yeah, very disturbing for me to see that. I posted it onto a girl group. There's 8 of us in our girl group. I have
as in a popular beat combo, or just a group of friends?
Just a group of friends.
Oh, I thought you were in a band for a minute then, Amanda.
I can only wish.
Yes, go on. So what was the reaction?
Little long in the tooth for that.
Aren't we all?
Yes, no, I found it incredibly disturbing, and I found the fact of a simple silent tear running down her face and her not even, because your instinct is to wipe a tear.
Yes.
She just looked so incredibly broken, and I put that on my girl group and said, heavens, could we actually bear to see any one of us so broken and receive no comfort, no reach out, no recognition for how she was feeling? It was so painful to watch, regardless of what your views are, woman to woman.
Yes.
That was incredibly difficult.
I think I felt similar when Theresa May resigned, actually. You see somebody else's anguish, regardless of what else is going on, or regardless of where you sit politically. If you don't respond with empathy to anguish, then I wonder whether there's something wrong with you.
I would agree. It would certainly make you dig deep with something like that. I found it incredibly difficult to watch, very uncomfortable, and
has it changed your feelings towards her? I mean, I don't know if the right word to use is humanise, but often politicians don't seem very human, and we've lived through an era where they did things to us that were fairly terrible and didn't seem to care at all. If she is carrying the burden of knowing that she holds our destiny in the palm of her hand and occasionally it gets too much for her, that might be quite encouraging on a human level.
Yeah, I would agree on a human level. It opens up a whole different question. You know, when people have done bad things, do we then relish seeing them suffer? I think 9 times out of 10, we would find it incredibly difficult to watch somebody else suffer, regardless of what they've done, from the simplest to the very worst of things.
Well, it may just be that you and me are snowflakes, to coin a recently popular phrase, but because Alan doesn't. Alan writes, "I love you, but," which of course is the best way to get your criticisms of me read out on the programme. "The pressure the sick and disabled have been under and are still under has real life effects for them, and Reeves is upset, question mark, question mark, question mark. Yeah, okay, it says what it says about me, but personally," writes Alan, "I love the smell of tears in the morning." So he revels in her suffering, and I would imagine that part of the burden she carries is the knowledge of how difficult some of these policies are going to be, to which you are perfectly entitled to respond by saying, well, she doesn't have to implement them. But you saw what happened when it looked as if she wasn't going to remain in the Treasury. The very same bond markets that did for Liz Truss got very spooked by the thought of her not being there anymore. So, the unfortunate detail, Alan, suggests that you are being unduly callous. Amanda, thank you. Kat's in Cheam. Kat, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James. I just thought it was astounding yesterday watching her in such distress, really. And it doesn't matter what party she belongs to at the end of the day.
Don't bite my head off, but I even felt sorry when Margaret Thatcher resigned because she had those tears in her eyes, and you could see the sort of... I don't know.
Margaret Thatcher was a different kind of lady.
Well,
so
yes, I know, but I'm not a fan of hers historically. But you still felt moved. Then you should be applauding me for feeling so much sympathy when the woman who did so much damage to this country finally got handed her sandwiches wrapped in a roadmap. So what did you feel?
So I felt quite sorry for her. I really did. I just thought she's there in front of millions of people and she's got a family and she's got kids. Do you know what I mean? And how awful, that everybody has got their own opinion, James, and that's why I'm so very grateful. I'm in a country that you can speak your mind.
Yes. And, don't tell the Daily Telegraph that, will you? They're convinced that you can't.
Oh, absolutely.
and that is, there's the sort of simple humanity of it. I'm interested also in, I've seen some speculation on whether or not it sort of speaks to a weakness of character. I almost lean towards the opposite. And it obviously happened after she came into the chamber. I wondered yesterday, if it had been a bereavement, why would you even have gone in? And the answer to that would have been, because if I'm not sitting next to the Prime Minister on a day like today, when we're recovering from the humiliating U-turn of the previous day, then loads and loads of people will read far too much into it. There's an exchange with the Speaker that was reportedly quite heated. And she was overheard to describe herself as being under so much pressure. I think that falls into the category of a personal matter, even though it wouldn't involve any personal revelation. It is just one of those moments where it all gets a little bit too much for you, 25 minutes after 10. Make of it what you will, but the people... And of course, this is not in any way scientific. It's just the nature of my inbox, the nature of the people listening to the programme, the nature of the people minded to get in touch. But most of the nastiness I'm seeing is coming from the left of Rachel Reeves, as opposed to the right, with a lot of reference to the welfare bill of the previous day. But you can hold two thoughts in your head at the same time. You might find the welfare bill wrong. You might not appreciate, understand, or even agree with the international financial markets and their response to the government's current situation, fiscally speaking, and also feel sorry for a woman who is displaying signs of abject exhaustion. You can do both. You don't have to... Well, anyway. Kelly's in Glasgow. Kelly, what would you like to say?
I know this is going to sound a bit controversial, and I'm not trying to be in any which way at all.
Just tell me your truth, Kelly, and we'll be fine.
I do not feel in any way a single ounce of sympathy for her. Not a single jot.
Go on.
She has caused so much harm to many other people throughout Scotland, but throughout everywhere. And people think a small tear coming from her eyes is going to justify all of that. It's not. I feel not a single ounce of sympathy for her.
What harm has she caused?
Well, just between her and her party have caused a lot of harm to Scotland with regards to wanting to cut free school meals, start freezing pensioners, the tax implications of the businesses and different things like that. I feel not...
They've extended free school meals.
No, Scotland has extended free school meals. Scotland has had free school meals for a while for the poorest in our society.
And the Labour government has extended that to England.
Yeah, only
so
now.
no one's. Yeah, but no one. Well, yeah, only recently. They've only been in power for a year. I don't know that they've done anything to try to remove them from Scottish children. And the winter fuel payments, they've U-turned on that. £35,000 is now the threshold under which you have to be to. Above which you have to be not to get it. So who has actually been harmed?
Well, what about the proposed cuts that were meant to be for the sick and the disabled as well?
Yes, that was U-turned as well. So in terms of actual harm that's been caused, what are we going to put on the list?
Well, I just feel that as a party...
They've increased school dinners and they have U-turned on the winter fuel and on the welfare bill. So in terms of people who have actually been harmed, the people who you use as a justification for your lack of sympathy for a weeping woman, who are they? Just show me one person that's been harmed.
Well, obviously, you're coming back with the U-turns, but what about the hurt that was caused before the U-turns?
Well, describe me the hurt. Well, so you mean sort of fear of something that has happened, that might happen in the future that didn't happen. So again, I'll push you again for an example of actual harm.
Okay, James, I understand what you're doing here, and I'm
asking for evidence, proof, facts.
But do you not feel that people...
No, it doesn't matter what I feel. I've spent 10 minutes telling you what I feel. We're talking about what you feel, and you feel that she doesn't deserve any sympathy because of all the people she's harmed, and I'm saying who has she harmed?
Well, her proposed cuts harmed a lot of people.
No, they didn't. You can say that they would have harmed people if they'd gone ahead. What is the actual harm that has been done?
I don't think you understand that the fact that when they were proposed, the damage this done to people thinking that they were going to lose their benefits, going to lose money.
But then she undid it. So if she did cause harm, and I think you're on fairly thin ice claiming that she did, then by undertaking the removal of those policies, she's undone the harm again, so nobody's harmed.
But if we just forget what she did cause?
Well, she didn't, though.
But she did, because she...
Anyway, there we go. I don't think controversial is the word I would have used to describe your position when you came on. earlier. But as I said earlier, it is, as long as it's authentic, whether you can back it up with facts or not, doesn't matter, does it? That's the thing about feelings. And if you feel that she's harmed lots of people, even though you can't name one, then why would you feel sorry for the fact that she was obviously enduring fairly considerable mental anguish at work yesterday? I mean, what other job? If you saw the bus driver crying, you'd sort of feel sorry for them. If you saw your accountant crying because he's just seen your tax returns, you'd feel sorry for them. I just don't get it. But fair play to you for your honesty. It is 10:30. Dominic Ellis is here with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
32 is the time. Do we want our politicians to be human, or do we want them to be not human? Genuine question. I'm sort of thinking about emotional vulnerability, emotional frailty, and there is a bit of sexism here, in the sense that when people used to say, "Well, imagine if she was in charge of the nuclear codes," and it was, her time of the month, quite a common phrase once when women were still not a familiar sight in the corridors of power. You'll still hear that kind of language in some corners of the country. So there is an underlying tone of sexism. Women are perceived as more emotional than men, and somehow that ill-equips them. Do you remember in the early days of COVID, where it felt very much as if female leaders had an emotional literacy that was enabling them to respond to COVID in a much more effective way than some of the male leaders? Boris Johnson adopted the attitude of a sort of emotionally incontinent PE teacher. The idea that you could somehow bluster your way through a global virus was frankly absurd, deeply dangerous, but incredibly easy to understand for anybody who went to a school like the one that he went to, because you're taught from a very, very early age to silence your emotions, to ignore your emotions, to grow. I never know how to pronounce that word. Is it carapace? You're like a thick skin. There's a word for this, when you've only ever seen a word written down, so you don't actually know how to pronounce it. You can get teased for it, but it's a mark of learning. It shows how much you read, but it doesn't pop up very often in spoken language. So that idea that an emotional literacy is a strength, or emotional vulnerability is a strength for a politician, and yet, of course, the opposite might be true for some people. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Grant is in Gillingham. Grant, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. First of all, I'd like to say 100% agree with your opening statement on your stance on this. So let's set the scene here.
Yes.
We're talking about a lady that's in one of the toughest jobs, probably the top two in the entire country. The pressure that she has day to day, she's probably working 16 to 20-hour days.
Yeah.
And for her to hit a breaking point, and sometimes that can't be controlled. Now, I also am making a total assumption here that, let's say it's not personally related. Let's say professionally, she's come to boiling point. She's had a breaking moment.
Yeah.
When did we become so barbaric that is a negative thing, where people are saying she should resign or she should not be able to show emotions? It makes her human. And if this was someone that was having a wobble on a regular basis, then she's not fit for the role. She knows what she signed up for. But that moment, that one moment, where's the compassion? Where is the empathy? I am shocked.
Yes. I mean, there's a danger, isn't there, sometimes, of focusing too much on the sort of loudest voices in the world of social media. But I was shocked by Kemi Badenoch's spokesperson essentially suggesting that she should be bullied into revealing whatever it was that was going on privately that had prompted her tears. As the dust has settled, I've ended up thinking there probably isn't a big personal moment that she was made aware of just before she came into the House of Commons. I think, as you say, and it is a personal matter when things just become a little bit too much for you. And also, I don't know how silly this will sound, Grant, but I didn't sleep the night before. It was so hot. I'd put a frozen bottle of water in front of the fan in the bedroom, but it didn't make any difference at all. I'd looked it up on the internet to see. So, an awful lot of people would have been a little bit close to the edge at that moment. But the idea that the Chancellor of the Exchequer should be somehow immune from those when she's under the sort of pressures you described does seem to me to be a bit strange. Do you not? What about the idea that you want a Chancellor who is actually not immune, that would be the wrong word, but who is resolute in the face of these sort of pressures. The idea that you face them down, you never let them get to you, and if they do get to you, you never let it show. That would have been a popular point of view in the 1950s, for example.
Yeah, I can't agree with that. I think at some point everyone has a breaking point, and I believe that it shows that she is more human, more relatable. You do look at these people in these roles, and sometimes you think, how do they cope with that immense pressure? Every decision they make, there's always two sides of the coin. Someone's happy, someone's upset, and millions of eyes on her every day. And okay, I'm not saying that that this should. You
wouldn't want it to happen every day. If it was happening every day or every week, then we'd have a different conversation.
Exactly. But this is one moment. And I think a little bit of compassion needs to be had by the country for this. And I don't think people should be treating her badly for that moment. I really don't.
No, I think I agree. Well, I know I agree. 10:38 is the time. The thing that no one can prove until it happens is that you would have a similar outpouring of humanity for somebody whose politics you found repellent, even. But that takes us back to Kelly, doesn't it, in Glasgow, who doesn't like Rachel Reeves' politics and therefore doesn't feel any sympathy at all for her current plight. I don't know that I want to be like that. I don't know. Maybe it makes us a little bit soft, but I don't know that I want to be like that. You see someone suffering, it's like the human condition. And you can't sort of perceive some people as less human than others in those moments. Yeah, that's why I mentioned Margaret Thatcher's resignation speech or Theresa May's. And I felt enormous. I told you at the time, actually, I'm enormously sorry for Liz Truss, even as the last thing she would have wanted was your sympathy or your pity or my sympathy or my pity. To watch somebody, and this, you can't really describe why you feel sorry for Liz Truss without adding to her burdens, because she remains in such delusional denial about everything. But it's horrible to watch, truly horrible to watch. No schadenfreude at all. It's a human being, a mother, having a sort of public, I don't know quite what the word would be. It's a human reaction, regardless of the politics. But I don't know, maybe me and Grant are the weirdos here and everybody else is normal. Paulette is in Manchester. Paulette, what would you like to say?
Oh dear. Hello.
Hello.
Not done this before.
What are you doing?
Nervous.
What are you doing?
Calling you.
Oh, thank goodness for that. I thought I might have to call.
I know.
Go on then. I get everyone in the end, Paulette. So yeah, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard.
Hello. Thank you. No, all I meant to say is I just felt compelled to call because I'm a solicitor. I'm a black woman. I've been through a lot in my career, and I now work for myself because I just couldn't take it anymore, to be honest.
Fair enough.
You get all sorts. You get sexual innuendo, you get outright sexual comments in meetings with other people, colleagues. You're undermined, etc. So I completely understand how she broke down. She's obviously of a certain age, as I am, which I don't think is being taken into account either. But all I'm saying is that I had to, I've had my absolute flip outs at work and I've walked out and I say, I'm not dealing with this, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes you just have to sit there and take it. And I don't know whether that's because of who I am or the type of person I am, but I just sit there and take it and then I go home and cry.
Yes.
So I completely have sympathy with her, empathy with her, and for people to say that Keir Starmer should have reached out to her in that moment, he couldn't have done that. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well, I don't think he knew. You see, the weird thing is that you can see what's going on behind him, but he can't. And, you don't have that. Also, I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all, does it, for him to consciously decide not to comfort the Chancellor of the Exchequer when she's sitting next to him crying? You'd have to be deluding yourself, not just the people that you're talking to claim that he consciously, callously and deliberately did that when it would look so awful. So the only explanation that fits the observable fact is that he didn't know, he didn't notice. You could argue that he should have done, but he didn't. Otherwise he would have done something. And to suggest otherwise is just silly.
Well, I mean, he couldn't have done anything. I mean, he's got other things on his mind. He's got, I mean, she's there, she's upset. Maybe she shouldn't have been, I don't know. But she was. He didn't know. I completely get that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Try and think
I think it's just one of those things, isn't it?
I think it is, yes. And she will have to talk about it at some point. And she can't stop people speculating about what she will say when she is asked, as she will be, what was wrong that day? What happened that day? And I think she will probably say something that we can all recognise, which would be just one pressure too many. Straw that broke. I just bubbled over. It got to me. There's a lot going on. Very unhappy about the events in the Commons, unhappy about the legislation that I feel we have to introduce. Lots of people feel that we don't, but I feel that we do. And and then the Speaker had a go at me, and it just got to me. It just all became a little bit too much. And if that was happening on a daily basis, you could question her fitness for the job. I think you'd have to. But if it's happening once in a blue moon, then you don't. Thank you, Paulette. A sparkling debut. Martin in Lim is made of rather different stuff. How can anyone have sympathy for Reeves, who has caused so much upset for everyone, including taking the £300 winter fuel allowance away from my 85-year-old mum, who is on £15,000 a year? Reeves is a cold, almost robotic individual. I mean, you pressed send on that. And the first bit's fine. I mean, you can claim that makes her a terrible person, even though they then undid it. But the idea that somebody crying is a cold, almost robotic individual is... I don't know that I've taken a sillier message this week. Precisely the opposite of being cold and robotic is the whole purpose of this conversation. But I guess we all see what we want to see sometimes. It is 10:44. We're Streeting currently laying out the plans for the health service. I think Keir Starmer due to speak as well. Natasha Clark is there for LBC, so we'll be catching up with events at that announcement in the second hour of the programme. Until then, the question remains. There's another story in the news today that I thought might merit a conversation between us. I don't think it will, actually, but it's research into women getting angrier, but getting better at hiding it as they get older. Women get angrier as they get older, but they learn to hide it better. The frequency and intensity of irritation increases with age, but emotional regulation improves. This is proper research. It's not some sort of made-up survey. It's published in the journal Menopause, which is the journal of the Menopause Society, and it finds that ageing was significantly related to anger, with anger expression indicators decreasing with age, suggesting that emotion regulation may occur during midlife. And emotion regulation, it's a cold term, that. We have to regulate our emotions, otherwise we'd never move out of the toddler phase. But on those rare occasions when we can't, when our emotions actually regulate us, I still don't get it. I still don't get how you could sit there and not warm to that person in that moment, even if you have huge problems with some of the politics that some of the policies that she's sought to implement. You could still feel human. No? Apparently not. 10:45 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Unscheduled, I think, but the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, looking a lot more composed, is currently leading a round of applause for NHS staff at this announcement into the plan for reform within the NHS. She is delivering a statement herself. And I don't know, Natasha's there, we'll check with her in a minute, but the opportunity to ask her what was wrong yesterday will no doubt be taken by politicians. And of course, politicians all over the place are being asked about it, including the Liberal Democrat MP for South Devon, Caroline Voden, who was speaking to my LBC colleague Andy Ballantyne just a few minutes ago.
It was interesting because yesterday morning we had a photograph taken of all the women MPs because it was 97 years since we won equal suffrage. So there was definitely a feeling of we're all in this together as women. And then I was absolutely appalled at Kemi Badenoch for the way she was, sort of being spiteful about the fact that Rachel Reeves was looking upset. We are human beings. It's a difficult job, and I think that Kemi let us all down. She let us down as women. She let us down as politicians. I thought it was appalling behaviour.
10:49 is the time. What did you think? This made me chuckle from Elaine. I just had to stop the car and say that whoever did that research on emotional regulation in older women has obviously never met my sister. Thank you, Elaine. It's the thing about research is that it finds trends. It doesn't necessarily reflect the attitudes of everybody. And this from Jonathan, I think is pertinent. My wife burst into tears at work last week. She's worked in global financial markets for 25 years. She's absolutely brilliant at her job. I'd be horrified if some numpty then said she's got to go. People need to get a grip. And Peter points out, as indeed that Liberal Democrat MP, Caroline Voden, just alluded to, what does this say about Kemi Badenoch? She had no way of knowing whether Rachel Reeves's tears were due to political pressure or a personal matter, but she went in jeering, bullying and triumphant in her manner. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think she's very nice. But if she was crying on the front bench because of undisclosed stress or sadness, I would feel sorry for her. My impulse would be to feel sorry. I might even try and talk myself out of it. But it is just, I guess it's just in your bones, isn't it? You're either like that or you're not. And it doesn't mean you're better or worse than the people who don't feel it. It just means we're different. And I suppose the way that you can decide whether you'd be better or worse would be very simply by saying, how would you want anybody else to react if you were crying? I guess that's the easiest way, perhaps, to process altruism. How would you want anybody else to react if you were crying? Anybody else? Everybody else? Somebody else? How would you want Rachel Reeves to react if you were overcome with emotion at work? 10:51 is the time. Sandra is in Northampton. Sandra, what would you like to say?
Hi, James. Firstly, I'm a bit nervous.
That's only me.
I think you're brilliant.
Thank you.
I love listening to you because I love all your debates and the way you argue about things.
But
I have one
there's
policy.
a big but coming.
I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Go on.
There's something we highly disagree on, and you were asking the lady from Scotland, who has she hurt? And
yes.
She's hurt me. I am someone she has hurt, and she's hurt, more importantly, my children. I'm afraid it's about VAT on private schools, and I know this is something you and me disagree on, but my children have lost their school and they've lost their home because we lived in a private school. They have lost everything, and they have cried. I've cried many tears, but they have cried many tears. But whenever Rachel Reeves is asked about this in a public forum, in a question time or Prime Minister's questions or anything, she smirks. She finds my children's pain funny because we're just 6%, because we don't matter quite as much as everyone else, because we're privileged. I'm not ever privileged. I'm homeless. My kids are homeless, and they've been homeschooled for the last few months because they're schoolless as well. We can't get them into a local state school that they wouldn't then drown in because they have been in the protective bubble. Absolutely. But fundamentally, she has hurt my family, and she has smirked about it. I think I'm a good person, James. I hope I'm a good person. I hope I'm a kind and caring person. But I can't then feel sad for her when she's having a tear. Is that? I don't know. I'm hoping I've explained it. You've
explained it. I mean, extremely well. People may be a little bit confused by the detail, but I presume if you lose your home, then your husband or you are teachers.
Yes.
And lost your job, and the home came with the job, and therefore you're going to be in not in a 6%. You're going to be in a 0.0000%
but we're
category.
Still in the percentage that we're still people that got hurt by her.
Yes, and if she has hurt you personally, then I don't think you are expected to necessarily feel sorry for her because you don't think she feels sorry for you.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, I feel kind of relieved that you can see where I'm coming from.
Of course I can. I'm not a monster.
Okay. I know.
But also, I mean, we talk a lot about thresholds, and wherever you put a threshold, some people are going to be just above it, some people are going to be just below it, and it looks desperately unfair. Your situation is probably unique, or at least very close to unique, and it's hideous. It's horrible. I don't know that she smirks, Sandra.
She does. But she really does. She thinks it's funny.
I'm fascinated by the smirk. There's a natural psychological concept about the sociopath smirk. Boris Johnson used to do that a lot, but I don't know that she smirks, does she?
She laughs it off every time it's.
Well, she wouldn't laugh off your story. So, because if you'd come on and said, "I've really been harmed by her because we have to sacrifice we've had to cut the cleaning lady's hours in order to pay for the VAT on school," I'd probably smirk. So, if you're thinking about this world's tiniest violin type of scenario. If you told her the detail that your family has been through,
I would love to. I have sent her many messages.
But as we say, you're unique. You don't matter politically. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but you just don't.
No. Exactly, James. But you're asking me to care for her. She's a tiny person too in that sense. But oh no, hang on, I'm waffling now.
No, don't worry. We all do it. But I listen. If I ever get, and I generally steer clear of all politicians, for good or for ill. But if I did ever get the opportunity to put your very specific case to her, I bet you 50p that she would actually say that's awful, that's terrible, and you know, unfortunately, it is a sad consequence of an otherwise very positive and necessary policy.
I'm afraid I'll have to absolutely disagree with that.
All right, call it a pound then.
But it's not just me. It's not just me, because as living in the school, the amount of parents that I did have to deal with that were crying, and children, and I know it's a small percentage.
You might be losing the room now. I think if I were you, I'd stick with your very personal circumstances on this, because already some of my less...
Well, tell you what, James, I will ring you next time you have this topic back on, because I've got a lot to say on it.
Well, I can't argue with you, though.
No, but I can talk about other people in the private school system.
I don't know that we will be returning to this topic, but if we do, I shall give you a heads up. I absolutely will, and I hope things for you and your family pick up sooner rather than later, Sandra. I really do.
I appreciate that.
Well, it's a human reaction. You know, I might find a lot of the complaints about having to pay VAT on school fees ridiculous, but yours is not. Your life has been absolutely rinsed by the policy, and that's horrible, and it's also unfair. But it isn't necessarily grounds for rejecting or removing support for the policy. Take care, and thank you for expressing yourself so well. Sarah is in Harlesden. Sarah, what would you like to say?
I just wanted to say I think people are being unkind, and I think it's just a sign of our move to becoming more uncivilised.
Is it? Is it? Haven't we always? Are we getting worse, or are we getting better, or are we just about the same?
Well, the point I wanted to make is about the decent thing to do. If someone is in distress and you're in their company, if you can't help them, you shield them, you protect them, you avert your gaze. Now, Kemi, she drew everyone's gaze and attention onto...
Yeah, that was really odd behaviour, wasn't it?
Reeves.
That was really odd behaviour.
Yeah, and she scored her political point, but at what cost? I mean, she's made an enemy for life. I don't think, not just from Rachel Reeves, but from other women. I just thought it was really distasteful. And it's just kind of like an example of like the harm that women do to other women. You just have to look at maternity services and see how mothers are harmed by the predominantly female workers in maternity units. Women are notoriously unkind to each other.
It can be, it's a consequence of conditioning, I suppose.
Yeah, and I just think, and also, if you happen to vote for any of the shadow cabinet who are on the benches alongside Kemi as she was speaking at the dispatch box, I was certainly looking at those in the row and those seats behind, and there were grown men just like jeering, smiling, braying, and I just thought, my God, that's really.
And they could all see what was going on.
Correct.
Of course, people sitting alongside her could not. And
correct.
You're right,
and
actually.
Starmer, he had his back to her.
Yes, we probably haven't focused enough on that. Actually, that they were all watching this trauma unfold and if you're reveling in it almost.
Yeah. And if your MP that you voted for can act like that, you really need to consider whether you want to vote for them when the next opportunity comes up, because I just thought it was uncivilised.
Rebecca says, like a school bully smelling weakness.
Yeah, and
Andrew says she looked like she didn't just abuse her; she looked like she relished doing it.
Yeah, she was happy, and just the way, like, poor Rachel, she was slumped in her seat, and we all have moments of weakness. But I just wanted to say another thing about women
quickly.
It's about
only because of the news. Nothing personal.
Just about adrenaline rushes.
Yes.
When women boys are socialised to channel, to breathe through, to push it out through physicality,
yes.
where girls are socialised to subjugate it, to hold it in. And sometimes, like, I've cried in the workplace, but it's not because I'm upset. It's just sheer... it's just my... It's
a form of emotional exhaustion, I think. It's as if you're... I mean, that's why the word regulation is helpful. I remember the moments where I could have done, and I'm not sure that you like the person that you become in order to avoid that emotional fluency, that emotional regulation. It's someone shouting at you in the office. You either buckle, and the world has changed a lot since I started in newspapers, or you shout back. And the minute you shout back, you become somebody new. You become somebody different. It's not really relevant to Rachel Reeves, just Sarah making me think about moments where you might have cried in the workplace and didn't, because rather than allow that feeling to overwhelm you started fighting it, and then in that moment perhaps became something a bit less pleasant than what you were before. That went deep. It is 11 o'clock. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. If it's all too deep for you, don't worry, it's Thursday, so Mystery Out will be upon us at 12 noon. And I'm going to return to the territory of obesity next, and indeed to the territory of weight loss drugs, but with a rather different question from anything that I've ever asked you before.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Minutes after 11 is the time. I love this. I find this subject among my new favourites. I mean, doing this job, we've been spending so much time together for so long. You could be forgiven for thinking we'd run out of things to talk about, but we never do. We never run out of things to talk. There's a myth, isn't there? I should have checked. I meant to check yesterday. I can't remember why. And when the newsreader said there is no news, is that an urban myth, or did that actually happen in the sort of 19-somethings? The newsreader said, "This is the BBC. There is no news. Everybody carry on," or something. That would be such a wonderful thing. I can't imagine we're ever going to live to see that day dawn again. And obviously part of the reason that you could get away with that is because you wouldn't have known what was going on the other side of the world until a pigeon arrived, or a train. I mean, imagine getting messages from the front in a 19th century war back to London. How would you even do that? How would you even find out how yesterday's battle had gone? You'd probably only catch up 6 weeks later or something like that. But... that notion of there being no news is obviously nonsensical. There's new stuff happening all the time. And of all the things that have happened in the last couple of years, in that curious alchemy between a news event and a conversation we can have together, ChatGPT is a contender, isn't it? That has spawned some increasingly interesting and illuminating conversations. There's a story around today about the 4-day week, which I think hasn't yet gathered the kind of momentum that some other emerging stories have gathered, but I think it will, not least because this story suggests that all of the companies who've tried it recently have decided to stick with it. So stories that we would never have talked about 10 years ago because the situation didn't exist or hadn't arisen. Working from home is quite a good one. That's possibly in retreat now. That as a conversation that may have peaked because the normality as it was has changed. But of all the things that we have been talking about recently that we couldn't have talked about 5 years ago because, very simply, the subject did not exist, what would you put at the top of the list? And this is a question you can probably only answer if you tune in relatively regularly for long enough to get a fair idea of what the biggest runners and riders are in our conversational agenda at the moment. If you just got me on for 5 minutes in the background twice a month, then you're unlikely to have a view on this. But of all the things that we found ourselves talking about quite a lot latterly, but would not have talked about at all 3, 4, 5 years ago. Don't say Brexit. What would be at the very top of the list? I think it would be the fat jabs, don't you? I think that there are so many elements to this conversation that it is almost as if it was designed with us in mind. Because you've got that curious tension that we've discussed in the past between the sense that it's cheating and the sense that it's not. So yesterday's show about the simple cost of obesity threw up 2 exceptional callers, Nick and Ashley, I think, if memory serves, one of whom described addiction to sugar in terms that were quite harrowing, actually. I was very moved by Nick's call, so much so that, as you know, we've promised to keep in touch and hopefully encourage him to get on the course of fat jabs that he's had in his fridge for the last fortnight. And then Ashley, who described the more old-fashioned approach to obesity and addressing obesity, like really profound and permanent lifestyle changes, reminding us of the importance of increments. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's a Snickers. That's quite a niche joke, isn't it? But it's a marathon, not a sprint. To lose weight effectively and to become healthier, and those two stools admit attention, don't they? Because there's a part of you that still thinks it's cheating to go on the pills, but I think that feeling is retreating now. Certainly, the more you the jabs. The more you speak to people, the more you realise that the proposition isn't that simple. You will have to make changes, but the fundamental, what's it called when you break the back of something, and it means you can get on with it. So the jabs will break the back, but then you still have to do the work to become healthier, to become lighter, to become slimmer. And then you've got I don't know if you suffer from this. I've got this little thing in the back of my mind that's waiting for the catch, because it seems too good to be true as well. I told you there's a lot of territory here for us to explore. You don't know what question I'm going to ask yet, so don't go anywhere. But have you caught yourself doing that, whether you're on it or not? Have you caught yourself thinking there's got to be a catch? Something's going to come out that knocks the gloss off this. So it happened last month, I think, that it was reported many people were having issues with their pancreas. There were links between these injections, which are usually for weight loss, but of course were originally for diabetes, and some suggestions that pancreatitis had been fatal when linked to these GLP-1 medicines. But it turned out there were 400 reports of acute pancreatitis out of a much, much, much higher number, and that the impacts or the potential negatives were as nothing compared to the comorbidities of obesity. So touch wood, it doesn't appear to be a massive catch, although there'll be further investigation. It made me realise I'd been waiting for one. Even though this hopefully won't be one, it made me realise that I'd been waiting for one. Subconsciously, there's a part of me going, oh yes, that is too good to be true. I'm waiting for the catch. And so far there isn't one. And then Wes Streeting, who was on with Nick Ferrari this morning, went a little further.
There's such encouraging signs that this works. But there's also an injustice today. So, for example, weight loss jabs are the talk of the House of Commons tea rooms. Half my colleagues are on them and are judging the rest of us saying a new lot should be on them. And the thing is, if you can afford these weight loss jabs, which can be over 200 quid a month, well, that's all right for you. But most people in this country haven't got spare $2.5 grand a year. And often the people who have the worst and most challenging obesity also have the lowest income. So I'm bringing to weight loss jabs the principle of fairness that's underpinned the NHS for almost a century.
What does that mean?
Now. Everyone can get them? Yeah, it should be available based on need and not the ability to pay, and that's what we're going to do on weight loss jabs.
Can't argue with that, but I have a slightly broader question for you, and he's right, you see. Everybody knows people that are on them, and even if they haven't told you that you're on them, you kind of know. I got a mate, I said, you're looking very well. And I'd already had another conversation with a mutual friend about whether or not he was on the jabs or not. Completely open about it. I think you probably have to be, but some people won't be. And everyone knows. Everyone knows. Are they going to change the world? Are they actually going to change the world? Yesterday's conversation about how much obesity and overweightness costs our society, I think the figure was £126 billion a year. Imagine if the media put as much effort into trying to fix that as it does into encouraging you to be furious about 20,000 people coming across the English Channel in a little boat. Just imagine just the financial terms. That would be 3p in every pound of your income tax. Extraordinary to see how easily conned we are into these positions of anger or into prioritising one thing over another. If it's even close to correct, that £126 billion a year, on dealing with the aftermath, the consequences of being overweight and or obese, then everything changes. So this isn't about obesity, this conversation. Everyone's a critic. Jamie's just said, come on, James, you did obesity yesterday. I can do obesity every day if I want to, mate. Were you not here after Brexit? We only talked about one thing for about 2 years. But this is not an obesity phone-in. This is a conversation about whether or not, actually, these jabs are going to change the world. 0345 6060 973 is the number you need. And, of course, you can answer it because you know you're one of the early adopters, as they say. You're one of the canaries down the coal mine. Is it actually going to change the world? Because goodness knows it would be lovely to have some almost undiluted good news, wouldn't it? And increasingly, the more we've talked about it and the further it's gone on, the more it's begun to look like the best news in a generation, the most extraordinary development. People will be able to tackle their weight and therefore all the associated health conditions, which add up to £126 billion of economic impact, whether you're talking about the cost of the actual operations that people are going to need as a consequence of their obesity, or whether you're talking about the amount of time you have to take off work because your knee's gone, or the amount of time you have to take off work for the operation, or the simple inability to do things because you're too tired or you're too heavy, extraordinary impacts. And now increasingly I'm hearing it can help with other addictions, it can help with cutting your alcohol consumption, but I want you to tell me whether or not you think they're actually going to change the world. 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And you can answer it because you are the canary down the coal mine. You're the early adopter. You are the case study. That's what we call them in this business, the case study. My switchboard, I can hopefully fill it up now with actual case studies. And remember, I encourage people to answer no to this question as well, because that is not only how we operate, but it's also quite important. You don't want to get your hopes overinflated if it turns out that there may be rather more flies in the ointment than we've managed to identify. And that's why I mentioned a moment ago the surprise I felt when I realised I'd been subconsciously waiting for a catch. Oh, it all sounds too good to be true. You know what we say to each other? If something sounds too good to be true, then it is. Then it probably is. But not always. Could this be one of those rare moments where something is so extraordinary, so revolutionary, that it could actually change the world? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And by change the world, I suppose what I do mean is taking a significant chunk out of the social impact, the public impact of private obesity or private addiction. So I know it's going to change your world, but is it going to be a big enough phenomenon to change the world? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. 16 minutes after 11 is the time.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Glad it's true. It was the 18th of April 1930. Thank you to everybody who's messaged me about this. And it was the 8:45 news bulletin, PM. And the script, it was supposed to be 15 minutes long, the wireless service on the BBC. The news announcer announced, because that was his job, you see, being an announcer, he had to do the announcing. He announced at 8:45 at the beginning of a scheduled 15-minute bulletin, and you know what his accent would have been like. There is no news. There is no news. There is no news. That's not American, that's posh English. RP, they're very, very posh, the announcers back in the day. I think they used to wear dinner suits, didn't they? They used to wear bow ties to read the news. There is no news. It's like Mr. Chumley Warner. There is no news. And then they played piano music for the next 15 minutes, or 14 minutes and 50 seconds, to be precise. Imagine that. It's only 1930. It's not even 100 years ago. Imagine that. Obviously, there are technological reasons why they wouldn't have been aware of stuff that probably did constitute news, but to have been able to make a decision that there was nothing happening in the country worth reporting. They were 9 years out from one war and 12 years out from another. 12 years after one and 9 years out from another. But everything was so hunky-dory and so chill, as the kids say, that there was no news. Amazing. I'd be out of a job. Stop celebrating. You'd soon be bored. if we didn't get to spend every morning. Anyway, enough. Are they going to change the world, these jabs? As Wes Streeting suggests that the NHS should make them available to pretty much everybody. Who could possibly disagree if they are as wonderful as early reports suggest? Lydia is in Nottingham. Lydia, what do you reckon?
I think they will. I don't know for sure, but I know that it certainly saved mine.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? If it changes enough lives, then it changes the world.
Absolutely. I spoke to you a few months ago. I was 17 pounds down at the time. I'm 4.5 stone down now, and it has changed my life completely.
Tell me how.
I think you have to have the attitude that if it doesn't work for you or you're feeling well, I always said to myself, I will have to stop.
Yes.
Because I don't think it's worth that. And I think that you have to go into it with that mindset. It's changed my world in the fact that I've lost weight that I never thought I was going to be able to. I'm fit again. I can run again. I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do next year. And it's changed the way that I view food. And your caller yesterday, Nick, the sugar addiction, the food addiction, it's completely changed the way that I see that, which tells me that obesity is often a symptom of something and it's not always the root and the primary issue.
Sure.
And if it's a medication that it is in touch your hormones, doesn't that say in the first place that your weight gain could potentially be down to hormones?
I don't know. I haven't got the science.
I'm not sure.
No,
yeah,
but it doesn't matter, does it, at this point? And what's the thing you're going to do next year? You didn't tell me, did you? You just said you were going to do something next year you've always wanted to do.
The London Marathon.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I've got a place next year, so that's
incredible.
It's changed my life completely.
And if that extends, any downsides at all? I mean, do you know what I mean about waiting for the catch, about thinking it's too good to be true? It's just the way we're conditioned, isn't it?
Completely. I've had that. I was doing it every week and I'm going, something has got to give. I'm sure at some point I'm going to come a cropper and something's going to happen. And my parents are the same. My dad, bless me, ringing to me every week and he goes, are you feeling okay? Are you okay? I'm fine. I've never felt better.
And on it goes, and if they were to prioritise that on the NHS, they would. It's front loading, isn't it? Our politics doesn't always feel like that. It's all about treatment. It's all about cutting waiting lists. It's all about improving access to the GP. But actually rethink everything, and bet the house on actually reducing the number of people that are going to need any of these things, reducing it exponentially, slicing it, dicing it, smashing it. And everything changes. That's what I mean by the world changing. And you are absolutely encouraged to ring in and say, no, it's not. But I suspect Lydia's going to be on the winning side when we come to tot up the scores at the end. Scott's in Cirencester. Scott, what do you reckon?
How are you doing there? I don't know whether it adds to the conversation so much. I know a couple of people who are on these jobs.
Yeah, I think everyone does. It'd be like a Punch cartoon. If you don't know anyone who's on them, you'd be like the loneliest person on the planet. And even if you think you don't know anyone who's on them, you almost certainly do.
Absolutely. Well, one lady I know is not overweight at all. She's taken it for addiction. And she'd never admit that she was an alcoholic so much, but she was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night, and she went on the jab for that reason, and now she's got absolutely no cravings.
Because she admitted to herself that she was drinking too much.
Absolutely, she could finally face it herself.
And who told her the jabs might work? Where did that? Do you know?
I do not know who gave her that information. But she gets them on her own. They're quite expensive.
They are.
But she feels transformed,
And it has. I think someone used the phrase to me. It's just silenced the voice in my head.
Exactly that. Well,
that's going to be huge as well. I mean, goodness me, we're talking about obesity, which of course can be linked to alcohol and alcoholism. But goodness me, if it's going to address addiction as well, then the costs to the NHS are going to be even bigger.
Phenomenal.
Than what we were talking about yesterday. Are we waiting for a catch? Is there a downside?
Well, I'm like you. I'm waiting for a catch. Yeah. But then I've got another friend who works in the NHS, and she said a lot of her colleagues are all taking it, but they're taking a very cheaper version.
Okay.
I don't know too much about that either, but there's another what if,
Yes, no, and a couple of people pointing to that story from a couple of weeks ago about pancreatitis. I have already referenced that, and it is not the catch that some people have been waiting for or worrying about, but it is certainly something that is going to merit further research. Sam, thank you for that, Scott. Sam says, I don't know anyone on them, thank God. I'm 19. Maybe there is hope for us young'uns. Sam, look, I don't want to patronise you, mate, but you know people who are older than 19. Your entire orbit of human connection is not determined by your age. You might, for example, have parents or grandparents. I guarantee that somebody in your... How many friends have you got on... Can you ask young people how many friends they've got on Facebook? I don't think you can they? They're never on there. What would be a way of judging your like the outer limits of your social orbit? How many people who follow you on somewhere, or what, I don't know, or how many people you've got in what we used to call your contacts book. How many people are in your phone as... anyway, whatever, I guarantee one of them will be on it. Seriously, I'm not going to be able to prove it, but I would be absolutely scunnered if nobody in your world was on it. Because, Wes Streeting said half the House of Commons is, and that will be true of many, many workplaces, but not all necessarily. 25 after 11 is the time. Adam is in Bedford. Adam, what do you reckon?
Oh, James, it has absolutely transformed my life. So since I last spoke to you about it in October, I've now lost a total of 40 kilos. And all of my health challenges, my fatty liver, my splenomegaly, my blood pressure, my sleep apnea, all gone in retreat.
That's
all
nuts.
Gone in retreat.
So that's just shy of 6.5 stone.
Yeah, pretty much. And today I'm seeing my cardiologist for my annual checkup, and if he doesn't gasp when I walk in the room, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed.
What have been the tough bits? I mean, we're not. I think we've moved away, and when we spoke in October, we were still debating whether or not it would all turn out to be too good to be true. I think that bit of the conversation is over. But what are the small fly, the midges in the ointment, if not even fully fledged flies?
To be honest, the midges in the ointment is kind of what Rose Streeting referred to. It's the fact you have to pay £200 a month to have access to it. Now, I'm a passionate believer in the NHS, always will be, and I'm fortunate that I can afford it, but that was exactly my reaction when I got told the only option on the NHS was bariatric surgery. And I thought, well, I don't want surgery. I'm going to pay privately for the jabs. But my concern was for those people that couldn't.
Why would you not have qualified for the jabs on the NHS?
Back in October, they weren't an option, not in my area. Anyway.
I remember. And, of course, it is just making a list of everybody who's enjoyed profound change to their personal existence, and then you multiply it by the number of people on the list, and then you decide whether or not it's going to change the world. And it is. And we can't put a figure on how much money the NHS has already saved as a consequence of you going on these jabs, can we? But it's going to be a fairly hefty sum of money.
Yeah, I mean, the only one downside that I could probably speak to is that it made me a little bit overconfident at my daughter's sports day last week, and I've ended up bruising a rib. But other than that...
Did you go over?
Yeah, I put a little bit too much power down on a little bit of dust patch, and my torso got ahead of my feet.
This is sensational. This is sensational. Well, I mean, and hand on heart, would you have been in it last year, the race, sports day?
No. Well, even if I was, an ambulance would have been called for that fall. But
so you
this
tell
time
the story.
You
make it all sound so human, and yet you are talking about a genuine transformation, a genuine. I mean, can I ask how your daughter has responded to the change?
Oh, my entire family, my friend, my colleagues, have everyone gone and said, you look so well, you look so healthy. And it's complete. I mean, I do. I feel like I'm in the best shape I have ever been. And I'm even thinking back to when I was in my early 20s when I wasn't so heavy, but I was out partying and, doing what 20-year-olds do.
Yes.
Whereas now I'm eating well. And the best way I would describe these jabs to anyone is if anyone's been rock climbing, the way I think of it is like a harness. So you climb, you wear a harness, you're a bit more confident to make the steps forward. Now you can hang out on the harness and you're not going to go anywhere, but you're also not going to go backwards. So if you hang out on the harness all the time, you get absolutely nowhere and eventually you'll strip down. Yeah. So it's a safety net. I have occasional chocolate, but, I don't go nuts. I still track my calories, but I still work out. But it's like you said, it breaks the back of the initial addiction and the habits.
A pal of mine who's on it, hadn't really done exercise for years. And he started. He says, I get in and I actually want to do half an hour on the rowing machine, or I want to do half an hour on the exercise bike. So everything changes. And that's why I'm asking the question I'm asking today, not just about how much have you lost or whatever, but how it's actually changed the way you relate with the world, the way you interact with the world. Sports Day being a wonderful example. I mean, imagine the difference there. Adam's kind of telling the story in quite a matter-of-fact way, but imagine the difference if it's your dad. And you go from him knowing he's not going to join in the dad's race because he's so big, because he's so unhealthy, and then throwing himself into it with a little bit too much vigour, so much so that he ends up with... I could get quite emotional about that, mate. That's just a really lovely juxtaposition of moments, a really lovely comparison, and it would be having an effect upon children up and down the country that we're probably not ever going to be able to properly measure, but which is quite close to beautiful. Dominic Ellis is here now with your headlines.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It's 33 minutes after 11. I don't mean to be crass, writes Kevin, but this caller actually sounds lighter, happy, euphoric. Lovely stuff. And it's true. That's why I'm having a conversation about whether or not it's going to change the world, because we know the answer to whether or not it's going to change an individual life or countless individual lives, but is it actually going to change the world? And we've only talked about physical impacts. Imagine the mental health. That's what Kevin's picking up on. You sound lighter. James makes the point. Enjoying the show, listening to your callers, you can tell that the mental health improvements these jabs can provide, as well as the physical benefits. You're going to be happier. I mean, it is perhaps the thing that looks too good to be true that isn't. It's just good, and it's true. I don't know. Clever callers today, clever texters. Evans in Dumfries, he writes, concerning your question about how many people you know, and using Facebook friends as an analogue, in anthropology, Dunbar's number is a postulated upper cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships. It's generally supposed to be between 100 and 250 individuals, often cited as 150 individuals. So how big a social circle can you meaningfully sustain? Answer, about 150 individuals. But that's not Bezies. You know, that's going to be the network, the social network, if you like, at which you are the centre. And why was I postulating about that? Well, because, is that the right word? Pontificating. Why was I pontificating about that? Because 19-year-old Sam got in touch to say that he didn't know anybody on these jabs. And I said, absolute hogwash. I guarantee that you do. Well, I kid you not, Sam has been back in touch to say, I just asked my mum, and we do know someone who's on it, so I stand corrected. Say, if you come for the king, you better not miss. 11:34 is the time. I also promised to tell you what I've done recently that would get me into trouble at an employment tribunal if I had done it to a colleague rather than a caller. I think it's time for the reveal. It was this.
No decision should be made on impulse. He's a wise man.
Oh, shut up. That was a caller talking about Donald Trump and my rather unprofessional reflex reaction. Go on, let's listen to it again.
No decision should be made on impulse. He's a wise man.
Oh, shut up. Telling a colleague to shut up at work is unacceptable, a tribunal has ruled. Company director David Ash will receive £15,000 after complaining about boss Roger Topping, who tried to silence him in a Microsoft Teams meeting. It is part, as these stories always are, it's part of an unfair dismissal judgment. So it's not 15 grand for simply being told to shut up. It's 15 grand for not having a reasonable and proper cause to be told to shut up, and being undermined in front of staff, and contributing to an example of behaviour that was considered unacceptable, and contributing to a claim for unfair dismissal. So there you go. I can't remember that caller's name, but if he had been my colleague, he might have had a case for unfair dismissal from the programme. What do you think the fade out is? If telling someone to shut up is potentially unfair dismissal, what would the fade out be when people are going off on mad rants and they don't notice that Keith is just very gently turning the volume down until one day we're going to have the confidence to turn it back up again after I've taken another call. So I'll fade out a crazy caller and then take another call and then fade it back up again and see if they're still going. But I don't think we're there yet. 11:36 is the time. Question is, are these jabs going to change the world? As Wes Streeting posits the possibility of rolling out the Mounjaro or the Ozempic, whatever you call it, to everybody who it may help. And you begin to realise that we could be on the cusp of what would you call it? A weight loss revolution. I'm trying to think of moments in history that might be comparable to this, and I can't. I suppose the contraceptive pill, in a way, would be probably the biggest medical intervention on how society works. Penicillin? antibiotics, contraceptive pill. It feels bigger than that in a way, because it would affect potentially everybody, and it would save society untold sums of money. Untold sums of money. So you might think of the Industrial Revolution, but the Industrial Revolution was a bunch of different things. Agricultural Revolution, a bunch of different things. It's like one single thing. I'd say, so the nearest thing I can think of would be penicillin or the contraceptive pill. Probably more leaning towards the contraceptive pill, but that might just be my ignorance. Anton suggests Viagra, but no, that doesn't work. It makes a massive difference to some people, but it doesn't change the world, does it? This does, I reckon. And no negatives yet, but there's still time. 11:38, sorry, is the time. Jane's in Norwich. Jane, what would you like to say?
James, it's changed my world completely. Without it, I don't know where I would be, to be honest.
Well, you'd still be in Norwich.
Actually, I'm just about to go to one of your favourite beaches in Wales, next to the sea for a walk.
Oh, what a lovely day to do it on as well.
Oh, I know, it's perfect, it's perfect. Now, I'm 67, so I'm older.
Yes.
I had health issues. I had muscle issues that meant I couldn't walk very far. I couldn't work. I had to give up work.
Oh, no.
I couldn't stand. And instead of being sensible with my diet, I didn't. I just ate out of misery.
Yes.
So I started taking injections last November. I've lost 3.5 stone. My life has transformed. I walk, I go to the gym, I work in the gym, I train 5 times a week. I look 10 years younger.
Oh, how
amazing.
amazing.
I don't know what I would have done without them. I really mean that. It's been life-saving for me.
And in every way. I mean, not just sort of I don't want to say vanity, but not just in pride in how you look, but in looking after yourself as well.
I'm a different person.
Well, what's it done to you mentally? Yeah, mentally, I was about to say.
Mentally, it has. I'm a different. I feel so much happier. I have grandchildren. I go to Centre Parks a lot, and I wasn't able to do anything with them.
In Thetford.
Now I'm flying down the I'm flying down the rapids. I'm doing all hideous things, quad biking, because I can.
That's just glorious.
And honestly, I'm so much fun.
But I can't remember a phone in where everyone sounded so happy. I mean, what would you have sounded like a year ago if you'd phoned me a year ago?
Truly, I was on antidepressants. I was in a really bad place because I was in constant pain and I just couldn't do anything. I was useless. Now I'm off them. My blood pressure's back to normal. I am completely and utterly healthy. Well, obviously, yeah, we don't know the long-term effects of these drugs.
Well, we've got a fair idea, because they can't just come to market untested, but you never know, and that quite weird sense of waiting to see whether or not there is a catch, it seems to be diminishing. But goodness me, people like you, I just times Jane by 1 million or times Jane by 10 million, and that's how the world is going to change. Jane, do you like oysters?
I absolutely don't know.
Oh, what a shame.
What are you going to recommend?
Well, I only discovered, I've been going to Wales for 20 years, and I only recently noticed that they sell oysters at the little caravan on the seafront where I normally go to get some cockles or some mussels, but they'll shuck an oyster for you there, and you'd pay about £6 in a London restaurant for what you get for £1 there. Or less.
Do you go to the Shell restaurant there on the front?
I haven't been there yet. Because it's really hard to get a table.
Yeah, they do. You can order a takeaway and you can take it on the beach in this beautiful box. It's amazing.
I didn't know that. And they do the big sort of fruit de mer, don't they? The big kind of seafood platter. I didn't know you could do the takeaway.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I shall see you in August.
Take it on the beach.
I shall see you in August. I certainly am. I'll never miss it.
I find it so busy in August. So
you're right, actually. I was there 2 weeks ago. We were in Brancaster. It was a beautiful...
that's another place I love, Brancaster Stave.
That is absolutely glorious, isn't it, Jane? You're very lucky living in that part of the world.
It's 40 minutes from here.
It's all going on for you, isn't it? Well, life is looking great. You're in one of the most beautiful parts of the country. You're skidding down the slides at Centre Parks, stuffing your face with seafood platters everywhere. God, be more Jane. There you go. You're a walking hashtag. Jane. That's what you are. You're a hashtag in human form. That's what we want. It's true, though, isn't it? James picked up on that a moment ago with the previous caller, is that people are sounding so light and sounding so happy. I'm sure Natasha Clark will drag the mood down. She has been keeping tabs on not just the Prime Minister, Natasha. We got the Three Musketeers
Yeah, James, a little bit of a surprise appearance from the Chancellor today. Obviously, you might expect the Health Secretary to be there, but the Prime Minister did face a few accusations that he had dragged the Chancellor there so that he could sort of show that she was okay, that everybody was getting on with the job, to calm down the markets perhaps after some of those jitters yesterday. And I have to say, James, she didn't look fantastically well. Obviously, she's trying to put on a brave face. She's trying to smile and show everything's okay. Did think it was slightly odd that she did choose not to mention what happened yesterday in the House of Commons. I think potentially there are lots of still questions about what's going on there, and I thought it would have been nice to hear just a line from her about I'm okay, that everything after yesterday has sort of resolved itself. But I was also keen to talk to the Prime Minister when I got the chance to ask him a question about his first year, and it's fair to say that this scenario that we saw in the House of Commons yesterday, James, and the welfare rebellion has really put a bit of a dampener on his first year in power. That's coming tomorrow, basically. It's the anniversary of the general election and obviously the anniversary of the win on Saturday. And lots of people will be in quite a reflective mood as we look back over the last year of Keir Starmer's government, the first Labour government in 14 years, what achievements they've made, what mistakes they might have made. So I was keen to ask the Prime Minister, if you could go back in time, if you had a magic ball, if you had a magic time machine and speak to your former self, what would you give your advice to your former self? And this is what he had to say.
Many things. Focus on what matters most. And that's why when I say what matters is who you have in your mind's eye, I really mean it. Because it's very easy to think that this particular issue is of paramount importance or that particular issue, and they often are important in their own right. But I came into politics relatively late in life. I'd done other things beforehand, and I came in for one simple reason, that I wanted to change the lives of working people for the better.
That was the Prime Minister speaking to me just a few minutes ago. His advice to his former self, focus on what matters most. He said you need to keep those in your mind's eye because it's very important to get distracted. He said it's important not to let anybody to push you off course. Don't ever be knocked off course. Keep that focus and remember about those people whose lives you are going to change. Remember what you're all doing this for. So quite an interesting answer from the Prime Minister there about sort of his focus as he looks back on his first year in power. And he's done a few interviews over the last sort of couple of days and indeed the last week, looking back, and obviously has admitted that there have, of course, like any government, been some mistakes about how he's handled things. He admitted today as well that he'd handled the welfare rebellion a little bit poorly, and he said, I wish there were things we'd done better. He basically implied, I wish we'd listened to those concerns a bit sooner, and some of the Labour rebels I've been speaking to today also share that fear, James. But yes, the Prime Minister trying to put on a bit of a defiant show of support for his Chancellor, and he kept pointing to her and saying, she is the reason we are investing billions of pounds more money in the NHS. She is a key, integral part of my plan for government. It's very clear the Prime Minister's message today about the Chancellor was that she's going nowhere.
But no questions actually about what was wrong with her yesterday. I mean, I wonder whether people listening will be a little bit surprised by that, given the amount of coverage that those events have received right across the media, not just here.
Yes, and I think actually Rachel Reeves is going to be speaking to the media and doing a pool clip shortly. And she was asked by many journalists there if she'd like to speak about what happened yesterday. Lots of journalists saying, really great to see the Chancellor here. Glad to see that she's okay. Nobody wanted to obviously press her on what is the personal matter that made you so upset yesterday. I think that would have been too much of a personal question for any of us to ask the Chancellor when she sat in front of her. But I did think it was strange that she obviously took to that podium, took to standing up today, offering a few words about the NHS plan, about her plan for Britain, talking again about her fiscal rules and fiscal responsibility. And we saw that movement in the markets yesterday. She obviously would be detrimental to move her because the markets were so rallying in support of her when Keir Starmer said
in enormous favour, but of course we'll never know whether there was any writing on any walls with regard to her future in the Treasury.
And I don't think there was. I don't think there was ever any sort of plan. But I did think the Prime Minister fully got behind her when the pound started to rally, the gilts markets sorted themselves out, and it's very clear that people think, or at least markets think, or at least people who are advising the analysts for the markets think that Rachel Reeves does mean that fiscal stability, and they do think that having someone else as Chancellor in would be a bit of a risk to those markets. So, but yes, I did think it was a little bit odd that Rachel Reeves decided not to talk about what happened yesterday, but I think we'll be hearing a little bit more from her in the next few minutes.
Well, keep us posted, Natasha, even if it involves breaching the barricades of Mystery Hour. I think we could probably find room for a couple of minutes if it does put this bizarre story to bed. Thank you, Natasha Clark, LBC's political editor there, asking a question of the Prime Minister. Between you and me, and don't tell Natasha that I said this, I've been getting a bit hacked off about her not getting the opportunity to ask questions at some of these conferences, given the size of the audience that LBC now commands and the pitiful numbers that some of the organisations who do get questions when we don't have. You'd think size matters in some contexts, wouldn't you? So nice to see LBC and Natasha in person receiving the credit for simply having one of the biggest audiences in the business. It is 11:48. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC.
James O'Brien on LBC.
51 is the time. This is nice from Dave. I'm not going to lie, James. This uplifting hour of clear joy and life-changing stories of such positivity is just what the doctor ordered after such unbearable news as a lifelong Liverpool supporter of the tragic death of Diogo Jota and his brother overnight. I'm glad you've mentioned that because I haven't yet today, largely because it's in the news bulletins and we don't have anything to add to the details that have already emerged, but it is an utterly heartbreaking story. And football, of course, runs through some people's lives like Blackpool through a stick of rock. Nowhere more so than in Liverpool. So I do understand exactly what you're talking about, Dave. The clip there of Nigel Farage that you heard a moment ago, condemning Rachel Reeves' handling of the economy. Can you find me the clip of him explaining his support for Liz Truss's? Can we play that out as well? So can you get me his answer to the questions about why he was so enthusiastic about Liz Truss's fiscal event? I'd quite like to hear that. We'll try and play that out before Mystery Hour. And the claims, of course, about her lying about her CV. This is an odd one, isn't it? Because it was her LinkedIn profile that turned out to be a little economical with the actuality. She said that she'd worked at the Bank of England from September 2000 to December 2006, and it turned out she'd left by March of 2006 and was subsequently working for Halifax Bank of Scotland in West Yorkshire. So, I mean, if you were to list lies told by politicians, that wouldn't even get into the top 200, unlike, I don't know what your favourite Nigel Farage lie is, but claiming that he'd only been asking questions about the identity of the Southport killer, where he'd actually stated that there were reports he was known to the security service. That was probably the biggest lie I can think of in recent terms. But there's some great news from that corner of British politics this morning. I come back, I think we can all agree, in times of dispute and fractiousness, a comeback that everyone will be delighted to hear about. Henry Riley is here with the details.
It's quite a comeback, this, James. In order to sort of help reform UK's fortunes, they've enlisted the help of Paul Nuttall, who, just to remind you, was the erstwhile leader of UKIP. He was there for 6 months. He was an MEP for 10 years. He fought 10 seats at Parliament level. He didn't win any of those, but he has now got a new role as the Vice Chairman of Reform UK. So, former leader of UKIP, we're told that his role will not be front-facing and that he will be doing a lot of the internal stuff. Now, which is a bit of a shame, actually, because you're right. He
contributed enormously to the gaiety of the nation.
He had a lot of headlines. And you may recall, when it comes to sort of being slightly economical with the truth...
Well, let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Farage this morning accusing Rachel Reeves of being a liar. I don't know if my memory is letting me down here, but didn't Paul Nuttall get into a little bit of bother in that kind of territory?
He did. There's quite a few to go through. Starting at the sort of lower level, he claimed to be on the board for North West Training Council, saying that he'd accepted an invitation to join the board. They then said he's never been a board member and he's never been invited to join a board member of the North West Training Council.
Well, that's awkward.
He ran in a by-election in Stoke-on-Trent, and it turned out that the address that he was listed at living, Michael Crick, the journalist, went to visit, and he had never lived there, although UKIP say that's because of security reasons.
Oh, there's another Nigel Farage lie. Do you remember when he said that he couldn't hold constituency surgeries in Clacton because the Speaker's office had told him that he wouldn't be safe, and that was a lie as well?
That was we did hear from the Speaker's office, you're right, didn't we, after that?
Can't keep up with all the lies from the liar.
The other sort of three points to this were there were claims that he was a footballer with Tranmere Rovers.
You're making this up.
This was his exchange with Andrew Marr.
Do you have a PhD from Liverpool Hope University?
No, and I've never claimed I've got a PhD.
It's on your website.
It's not on my website. It's on a LinkedIn page that wasn't put up by us, and we don't know where it's come from, OK? So I've never claimed that at all.
Did you ever play professional football for Tranmere Rovers?
I played for 5 years for Tranmere Rovers as a schoolboy and a youth team player. I've never claimed that I've been a professional. It was one press release in 2010 put out by a press officer who knows nothing about football.
You have a very over-enthusiastic researcher. Do you still have that enthusiastic researcher?
Well, I don't know where that comment has come from. That was to do with the Daily Mail story today, which said that I had a PhD from Liverpool Hope. I've never claimed... And in fact, actually, if you listen to interviews... It's nothing to do with me. And if you listen to interviews I've given over the past 5 years, I've always spoke about wanting to finish my PhD, which I started in 2004.
It's a curious one, because there was a LinkedIn page that claimed to be from a Paul Nuttall who said that they did have a PhD from that particular university, but he, as you hear then, he denies it. The Tranmere Rovers one was...
Who here hasn't had a fake LinkedIn page put up about them with claims of academic achievements that were simply not true? I mean, it's a well-known hazard. It's a well-known pitfall of public life.
Fall into it, don't you? And the other one was...
It's not as if his boss has been calling other people a liar today.
Tranmere Rovers was the other one, which, I mean, he said it was a press release. It did have his... It was sort of from Paul Nuttall. It wasn't from UKIP. Paul Nuttall saying, when I was a professional footballer at Tranmere Rovers. Now, these are quite jovial to an extent, but one particular story about Paul Nuttall, which did really cause some offence among people, was with regards to Hillsborough. Now, this was the 1989 disaster. He was there at the day, but crucially, his website had said that he lost close personal friends. Now, this was his exchange with Radio City Talk in Liverpool.
It affects me every day, and if I didn't lose anybody that day. You say you lost a close personal friend. That's on your website.
I haven't lost a close personal friend. I've lost someone who I know, but I don't know who's written.
January 9th, 2012, on your own site.
That is.
Lost close personal friends. It's on your website.
That's not from me. I'm sorry.
It's on your own website, Paul.
Well, that is absolutely. I'm sorry. I haven't lost anyone who was a close personal friend. There's people who I knew through football and things like that. But
I basically went to your website last night, searched for Hillsborough, and it's paulnuttallmep.com.
Yeah,
it's your website.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but that is something which I haven't.
It's your own quote.
I haven't put that out in my. That is wrong.
But you see where this goes with you being a politician, and people will find these things.
I lost close personal friends at that match and understand as well as anyone how deep the scars of that tragedy go. I am delighted that she has acquired sufficient signatures on her petition, and it goes to show how seriously this issue must be taken, was the full quote that was being referred to there.
And not from a spokesperson, from directly Paul Nuttall. And just lastly on that, James, that particular incident was in the press a lot because he was running for a by-election. Aaron Banks, who is now back with Reform, he's the advisor on Doge. He was previously with UKIP. He said at the time that he was, quote, sick to death of hearing about the Hillsborough disaster, and it led to various UKIP officials in Merseyside resigning as a result.
Sick to death of hearing about the Hillsborough?
That was the quote that Aaron Banks said at the time.
God, even my memory is not big enough to hold in all of the horror shows that these people commit. Speaking of which, what did Mr Farage have to say earlier about the new arrival in his party, who was, because the newspaper's reporting this morning, as you reminded us yesterday, she lost the Conservative whip for using the N-word. I know he's very keen to stress that they don't let racists into the party, so how did he explain that one?
Well, as you say, he's previously said that he wouldn't let sort of any old Conservative MP in. As you say, it's sort of heavily in the press. Anne-Marie Morris, who's leading up the social care policy. It wasn't discussed today, but I'm sure another time he'll be asked about it.
I look forward to that. It is 12 noon. Mystery Hour's next.
James O'Brien on LBC.
Oh, is it that time of the week again? 3 minutes after 12. That comes around almost as regularly as a Nigel Farage phone-in on LBC, this feature, but marginally more enjoyable, I hope. If you have a question that doesn't yet have an answer, then you know what to do. 0345 6060 is the number you need. We are in the business of solving mysteries, unravelling riddles, addressing enigma. And I can only do it with you. My favourite contribution of the week will win a Mystery Hour board game. I kid you not. It's a proper grown-up competition like they have on proper grown-up radio programmes. And you can find the full terms and conditions for that at lbc.co.uk. And I think other than the guarantee that you will know more by 1 o'clock than you do now, we can probably crack on early on this with no further ado. I've got 3 phone lines free currently, which means you can grab one if you're very quick. And then as soon as somebody asks a question to which you know the answer, then you have to ring in with the answers as well. So that is generally how it works. You can find out more about the board game at mysteryhour.co.uk. Keir Starmer has addressed that question of why he didn't appear to comfort Rachel Reeves yesterday, and the answer, as anybody with a functioning cerebral cortex would already have puzzled out for themselves, was that he didn't notice how distressed she was. As he says, it's a simple human common sense explanation. But I'm sure some people will still pretend not to understand that. 5 minutes after 12 is the time. Should we crack on? Should we just dive straight in? Have I missed anything out? I've done all the housekeeping, all the rigmarole. 03456060973 is the number that you need. Alexander is in Guildford to kick things off this week. Alexander, question or answer?
It's a question, please, James.
Carry on.
So, the other day, picture the scene, it's hot. I decided I wanted some juice, so I put some of the juice in the glass, went to the fridge, filled it up.
Cordial.
Absolutely.
Carry on.
Robertson's Fruit Creation, if you do want to know, orange and mango. And poured it, I drank it, it was lovely. Then I left it on the side for a couple of hours. When I came back in and drank it again, it tasted so much sweeter and it almost wasn't drinkable. And the same thing happens with Coke. When you drink it, it's fine, and if it goes flat, it tastes so much sweeter, and it's almost too sweet to drink. Why does that happen?
I've never noticed this. Sweet gets sweet. I mean, I don't know, the Coca-Cola thing. I think I would have noticed if I'd known. But if you pour yourself a nice, refreshing glass of squash, and then when it has warmed up a bit, it's sweeter to your taste buds.
But it was, like at room temperature at the moment because it's quite hot. You drink it, and it tasted so much sweeter.
Well, I mean, if it's true, and it's not a sort of...
It's definitely true, James.
Well, it's true for you. It might be an Alexander issue. It might be to do with your taste buds rather than to do with the chemistry of the cordial, the chemistry of the squash.
True, could be.
But we'll find out. No, I like it.
Yeah,
why does it taste sweeter? I mean, it is a slightly different question, isn't it, from whether or not something's happened to the actual drink that changes it. It could be the temperature.
Well, no, it definitely is the temperature.
That's what I mean. It could just be that warm things taste sweeter to us, warmer things, but we need someone to explain it. Speaking of mangoes, do you have an ice cream machine?
No, I don't.
Because I've just bought a tin of mango pulp from Morrison's, which is quite healthy on my app. It's got a little bit of sugar syrup in it, but you stick that in your ice cream machine and you've got mango sorbet. You don't have to do any work at all. I spent much of May peeling and de-shelling mangoes. It's one of the biggest palavers you can do in the kitchen. It makes chopping up an avocado pear look like child's play.
I just had an idea for your banana liqueur.
Oh, a mango one.
No, banana liqueur ice cream.
But I'm not going back to the Canary Islands anytime soon. That was the only time I ever invested in a banana liqueur. But you could do a spritz in there. So you could do a spritz, a bit of banana liqueur, a bit of prosecco. But anyway, I'm talking about mango sorbet. Stop distracting me, Alexander. Thank you. Why does his drink get sweeter when it's warmer? Juliet is in Marlow. Juliet, question or answer?
It's a question, please, James.
Carry on.
So I just recently got back from Glastonbury Festival.
Oh, lovely.
And yes, it was very nice. And for the last, quite a few years now, they put down across all of the fields lots and lots of wood chipping, and I think that's to help prevent it getting really, really muddy when it's a really rainy one. So it's a brilliant idea. But as we all know, Worthy Farm is a working farm, and at the end of the festival, they have an amazing team who come and do all the litter picking, so all of the detritus is picked up.
Yes.
But how do they pick up all of the wood chip?
Why would they have to?
Because you can't let the cows back on the land
Why
with
not?
all the wood chip there.
Why not?
Well, because what they're going to graze on.
Well, it's not. I mean, is the whole place covered in wood chip?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh. Well, I mean, it's how do you know it's cows?
because they go to the motel when the festival's on.
Oh, do they? I didn't know
They
that.
do.
Because they're having
They
a fallow year next year. So,
They
I mean, it
do,
could just be that the wood chips work their way into the ground and it grows back the following. That doesn't quite work, does it?
No, because the fallow year's every 4 years, and this wood chips down every year, and there's a huge amount of it. And I think it's about 1,000 acres is the festival site, and I know it's a properly working farm.
It can't all be covered in wood chips.
Well, the majority of the areas are.
So what happens to the wood chips?
Yeah, exactly. They can't just leave it down, can they, if they're going to bring the cows back?
Well, that's where I think you and I are coming at this from slightly different angles. I'm not as convinced that they can't as you are.
But what would they graze on? Because the wood chip completely
But the grass will grow through the wood chip pretty quickly.
Do you think so?
Yeah, definitely.
But there's a lot of wood chip.
How much wood would a wood chip if a wood chip could chip wood? Is the question that I would have asked this week. Perhaps they've got... I don't know if you heard about the specialist bee hoover on the programme earlier this week. A specialist bee hoover. It's not beyond the wit of man that they just hoover it all up with a massive, great big wood chip hoover.
I did say that to my husband, and he said that maybe, but I didn't know if such thing existed.
Or blowers.
Or blowers, yes.
Blow it into big piles, and then that'll rot down, mulch, like a compost.
Do you know
like
what? That's probably what they do, isn't it?
I think it might be, if indeed they do anything at all. But that's what we want to know. What do they do with the wood chips?
Yeah, maybe if Emily Evis is listening, she can let us know.
That would be nice, but I'd take anybody qualified. It doesn't. We don't have to go. We don't have to go straight. So she's probably got quite a lot on her mind at the moment.
She probably does. Yes.
What was your best bit? What was your favourite act?
Oh, definitely Pulp coming on as the not-so-surprise act. They were
Smashed it, didn't he?
amazing. He was so good.
Rocked it.
Really was.
Yeah, I was only watching on the telly, but you could sense the magic in the field. Thank you, Julia. I'm pretty much backing myself on this one. It's organic material, so it will break down into the ground. They might not do anything with it, but we need somebody qualified. 0345 60609 at 73. There was a joke there about pulp and wood chips, and so, but I didn't spot it in time, and frankly, nor did you. 11 minutes after 12. Paul is in Barnstable. Paul, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on.
When and why did the media start referring to Wimbledon as SW19, the tennis championships, by its postcode? Because you never hear people talk about rugby happening at TW2 or the motor racing in NN12, which is Silverstone, or
politics.
Mr. Harriers being in DY10.
Oh, well played. You looked that up.
No, I didn't. Well, I did.
Yeah, there's no way you knew that at DY10. That's sensational.
I thought you might want some other examples. That was
well, no, very strong, except they do. They talk about politics being in SW1, don't we?
I was thinking of sports.
Well, I know, but it's journalists using postcodes as a synonym for another locale. I don't think there's is there a mystery here, really?
I'm just wondering why they just do it for tennis.
Yeah, OK, I'll put it on the board, but I very much doubt there's an answer, unless we've got some sort of dim and distant. It's the same as saying SW1 for Westminster, SW1 for the House of Commons, SW19, Wimbledon, SW19, Wimbledon. I can't think of an obvious answer to the question, but if anybody knows, I shall push them to the front. Extra points to Paul, please. Extra points to Paul for a Kid and Mr. Harriers reference. Thank you very much. 12 minutes after 12 is the time. Gary is in High Wycombe. Gary, question or answer?
Question, James. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. That's not a question, that's a statement.
No, it's a statement. Yeah, the question is, why did, en masse, men especially, stop wearing hats? If you look at any pictures from like 1900s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, en masse...
Shampoo.
Well, they didn't have shampoo in the 50s.
Mass-produced shampoo becoming much more commonplace.
So the purpose of the hat was to cover up dirty hair.
Yeah, I didn't say I was going definitive on this. I'm just thinking out loud.
Now, I've got a book, I don't know if any listeners have got this book called Century, came out in 2000. It's a massive book of photographs from each year. It's just a book of photographs. And for years I've been wondering...
Yeah.
I understand.
I like a hat. I think it serves a man well.
Even if it was a fashion thing, you'd think children would sort of copy their dads and wear hats.
And it was classless as well. There'd be different types of headgear, but you'd have flat caps in the factories, and you'd have top hats at the. Everybody wore a hat.
Everybody wore a hat, but then what happened?
Well, brilliant question.
one day did somebody just go, no, hats off. That's it, over.
No more hats.
The occasional hat, but not
Used
on
to take your hat
anymore.
off in church. And then, do we know when it happened, roughly? I'd say, what do you reckon, the 60s?
Well, I'm looking through my book. I reckon probably roughly the 60s. Now, that would suggest everybody wanted to be like the Beatles, but who didn't wear hats.
No, but most people were not caught up in the Summer of Love or the hippie movement, were they? So, but maybe it was just a deformity, because you could almost say the same about ties, couldn't you? Everybody used to wear a tie.
Yeah.
And now hardly anybody wears a tie anymore.
Hardly, but the hat thing was en masse. We'd have hundreds, especially men, in a room or a football match. For a good example, everybody has got a hat or a cap on. Everybody.
Could it have been? I'm thinking about it from the hair point of view. So, but it doesn't really work, does it?
No, people had hair then.
No, I know, but hairdressers were not a big thing, were they? Didn't have haircuts.
Well, there must have been, because underneath the hat wasn't very, very long hair.
No, I know. I'm thinking out loud. Stop bullying me, all right? I'm just trying to think of... It's a great question, this. Sometimes when a question is brilliant, I worry that we haven't had it before, and there might be a reason why. Matt in Stockport says, I'll eat my hat if anyone can answer this question.
If he can find a hat.
If he can find one. I like a hat, actually. I wear caps a lot. I wear baseball caps a lot, but I might buy myself a nice Panama hat this summer. I'm due a little treat. I like a Panama hat, but you've got to be able to... Some people can really pull off hats. Everybody used to wear hats, and now nobody effective. Don't at me to tell me you wear a hat. Don't hat me to tell me you wear an hat. Or indeed at me to tell me that you wear a hat. But why did we all stop wearing hats? Sounds like a Pam Ayres poem. I wish I'd looked after my teeth. Why did we all stop wearing hats? 0345 6060 973. If you can answer the hat question, the SW19 question, the Glastonbury question, or the why do drinks get sweeter as they warm up question. Or indeed, of course, if you have a question of your own. It's 12:15.
James O'Brien on LBC.
12:17. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where Mystery Hour continues. There's some lovely questions so far. I think I don't actually have the favourite, but the hats one, I think might reach parts that the other ones may not yet reach. We shall find out, but there's still room for a lot more. Edward's and Dartmoor. Edward, question or answer?
A question is going to be your favourite.
Oh, well, that's very bold talk, Edward. Go on.
Can I ask it in a creative way? A couple of quick questions. What is the real name of the Air Force in this country?
What, are you asking me questions?
Yes, it's the Royal Air Force.
The Royal Air Force, yes.
Yes, and the name of the Navy?
Is the Royal Navy.
And the Army?
Is not royal, but lots of regiments are.
Yes, but why isn't it the Royal Army? That's my question.
Because I think, oddly enough, I think I know this historically, and it's because it doesn't belong to the King or the Queen. So a regiment might have a royal... A royal might be the head of a regiment, but the army itself doesn't belong to the king. It belongs to the nobility.
Do we know that for sure?
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what you think. I decide whether or not we know. It's James O'Brien's Mystery Hour, after all, not Edward on Dartmoor's. But I think it's come up before, and that is an answer that has been given by better qualified people than me, and therefore I am citing them as the authority without being able to remember who they are. It's... Yeah, it is. I think it is that, but I'm not going to take the round of applause, Edward. I'll let someone who can explain themselves a little bit better than that take the round of applause later.
Super, thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. I like that question, because it is... People go, oh, yeah, he's right. And yet, of course, it's been in front of us for all of our lives. It's not the Royal Army, but it is the Royal Fusiliers, or the Royal... What's it? Dragoons or whatever. It's something to do with the King, the Civil War... Was it after the Civil War the army was not the king's anymore? It was parliaments or the nobilities. But anyway, if I can't remember it, I can't give myself a round of applause. But I think the Civil War. 12:19 is the time. Chris is in Glastonbury. Chris, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
It's the wood chip answer for Glastonbury.
Oh, yes.
They have like a rake thing on the back.
I should have seen that coming when I say Chris is in Glastonbury. I should have thought that. I bet I know what question he's going to be answering. But there you go. Nobody's perfect. Carry on.
Yeah, it's all raked off with a big sort of rake on a tractor and then piled up. There's a huge wood pile at the back somewhere out the way that you don't see.
And it just rots down?
In this big pile, it's all sat there in a huge pile for years, and then when they need it, they can bring it back out and throw it on the ground. And there's a huge pile of other wood they chip every year to make it more.
So it's constantly recycled?
Most things up there do get recycled, yeah.
And I mean, Juliet painted a picture. I've never been to Glastonbury, and at this age it's unlikely I ever will, but the job sounds enormous.
There's quite a lot of us who do it. A lot of drivers, a lot of crew, a lot of people on the ground.
And it's so it's like a plough, but a rake, like a massive rake. How wide?
Yeah.
And so you drive around raking up the wood chips and then parking them. What do you do? Scoop them up, stick them in a container.
Scoop up, put them on a tractor, and a trailer, and they get taken back, dumped.
Yeah, fair enough.
They only put it on sort of generally the walkways and bits that are going to get really muddy if there's a chance of rain or.
Yeah, that's what I thought when she said they covered the whole fields in it. That's simply not true.
There was a big bit by the pyramid this year, I noticed, but not much else.
Maybe she didn't move much. Maybe Juliet didn't move much. What are your qualifications, Chris?
I've been on the clean-up for 19 years now.
19 years?
Yeah, it was quite a clean year this year. So
was it? Do you think people are taking it a little? Because some of the pictures from a couple of years ago were a disgrace, weren't they, of all the stuff that had been left behind? Do you think the message has filtered through to the throngs that they should clean up after themselves a bit more than they used to do?
They've started to do it quite a lot more, actually, yeah. And nice sunny weather helps people take more with them, or they tidy up after themselves a bit more. So
yeah, because it's not soggy. It's not. I mean, it's a lot harder to carry sodden stuff around than it is to carry dry stuff around. I like that. How many of you are there, do you reckon?
Oh, hundreds and hundreds.
And it's seasonal work, obviously, but you're local, so it suits you.
Yeah. There's you've got to set all that up. There's a huge recycling centre up there they build for the thing, and all sorts goes on up there. It's quite an operation.
Love it. About a year off next year.
Oh, thank God for that.
Have a round of applause, Chris. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
I like that. It's sort of an army of people, an army of Chris's making glass. Oh, hang on, come back. Do you get in for free?
Yeah.
So you get to watch it?
Yeah, we get to watch it in between.
What was your favourite this year? What was your favourite bit this year? Did you have one?
The prodigy was pretty good.
Yeah. No, fair enough. 22 minutes after 12 is the time. Thank you, Chris. Hugh's in Hampstead. Hugh, question or answer?
Question.
Carry on.
I bought 2 types of bread. One a pre-packed sliced bread.
Ooh, fancy.
And one a baguette from the bakery section.
Yes.
Being posted. Went away for 10 days, came back. I'd eaten half of each.
Yes.
The sliced bread had gone moldy.
Yes.
But the baguette had just gone dry and hard as rock.
Yes.
Why didn't the baguette go moldy like the sliced one?
Well, I mean, they're technically both bread, but they're quite different breads.
Yeah, but things go moldy.
But the bread, the sliced bread would have... Oh, so why doesn't the baguette go mouldy? Well, because it needs to have moisture in it. Because it's drier. It's much drier. I don't know why. I've got no idea, mate. I'm sorry. I've got absolutely no idea. I'm making it up as I go along. It's going to have something to do with... I was nearly said ingredients, as if that was a particularly sparkling insight. But it's going to have something to do with being sliced. But no, it isn't, because if you slice the baguette, it would just dry out.
Of the baguette as well, so that was kind of sliced.
Yeah, exactly. No, that would just dry out, because it does, doesn't it? It's how you make breadcrumbs, but you can't do it with... Okay, preservatives and moisture emulsifiers. Was it quite cheap bread, the sliced one?
It was just off the shelf.
But it was normal bread. It wasn't like a sliced sourdough from Gales or something like that. It was like Mother's Pride or Mighty White or Kingsmill or Hovis.
Well-known brands.
Well, I think it's got emulsifiers. I don't know why I'm even saying it. What do I know about it? I know nothing. I'm saying emulsifiers like it sounds authoritative. I'll find out. Why does sliced bread go mouldy, whereas a nice baguette just dries out? Did you not know you were going to be going away for 10 days? Because you could have just bought one or the other.
No, it was a business trip, so...
You didn't go on holiday by mistake?
No.
No, that's a niche cinematic reference there. The people who got it would have appreciated it. Why does sliced bread like a normal sliced loaf go mouldy, whereas a normal baguette just dries out? 034560609. In the bag. It was in the bag. It's all about the bag. Is it the bag?
They both had plastic.
No, they didn't. The baguette wasn't in a plastic bag.
It was.
Yeah, but it wasn't sealed.
Yeah, but they were both unsealed.
All right, then. Okay, it's not the bag.
Half of them.
It's not the bag. I think it might be the bag. It's the bag and moisture. But someone else, again, as with the army question, someone is going to have to put together my thoughts in a slightly more impressive way. 25 minutes after 12 is the time. Thank you, Hugh. Chris is in Nottingham. Chris, question or answer?
Question, please.
Carry on.
Good to talk to you.
Likewise.
It's about flying ants. How do the scientists know when it's flying ant day? And how can they always seem to get it right?
But do they, though?
Yes.
Are you sure? Don't we all just sort of suddenly notice that it's flying ant day?
No, because my wife we were sat in the garden the other night and she says, they said today was going to be flying ant day last week, and it wasn't. It was driving us mental in the garden.
So it's already been?
It was early on this week.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You don't sound very sure.
I am very sure, James.
Oh, how sure?
About sure as my wife's telling me that she'd read it, and I ain't going to argue with her.
Well, I don't think it is. I don't think it's been yet. Which kind of makes a mockery of your claim that it is predicted accurately by scientists or whoever, doesn't it?
Well, that's what she said. And she said,
yeah, well, I know, but I mean, I can't stop bullying you over something that your wife has told you, but I don't think it's happened yet, and I don't think they can accurately predict it.
A scientist is going to phone in and prove you wrong.
Well, it's always around the end of July, which is what makes me think it hasn't happened yet.
Ooh.
But
we were sat in I heard it the other day, and because there was hundreds of them.
And were they definitely flying?
Oh God, yeah! There was in your face, and we just sat outside in the garden having a glass of wine.
No,
and
it's definitely the end of July, mate. It's not come. We've had some sort of false alarms, maybe, because Stephen's in Milton Keynes. He says they were everywhere. He thinks it. And Dal says it happened on Sunday. They were flying all over my porch. Quite a few people claiming it happened on Sunday. Well. And then most people saying it's going to happen at the end of July. So, I mean, one thing we can say for certain is that scientists are not very good at accurately predicting it.
It's obviously not today.
Well, I don't... and Michael says it was on Tuesday. Gary says it was on Monday. You're just trolling me now. You're just sending me random days of the week. Right, we need to finesse the question, Chris. Can scientists accurately predict flying ant day?
Well, we'll go with that.
Is that all right?
That's absolutely fine, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So can scientists accurately predict flying ant day? And James's question, because I'm allowed them, have we had it yet? I don't think we have, regardless. Apparently it happened in Liverpool on Monday, and Marco says it was... there isn't only one flying ant day. Well, clearly. 12:28 is the time. Daniel's in Hull. Daniel, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Daniel.
The hat one.
Oh, yes.
So... my theory is that it's the invention of the car.
Yeah.
Because I remember in the 1930s, 40s, we all wore fedoras, big white brims.
Well, we didn't all wear it. I'd have worn a flat cap because I'm a horny-handed son of the soil.
And then in the 60s, headdress became a thing on cars, so people started to wear trilbies with the shorter brims.
I like the I like the detail of your theory, but I'm not sure I'm remotely persuaded by it at the moment. Carry on.
It's the fact that people then didn't need to wear a hat because they're in a car most of the day.
Yeah, but that was true from... I mean... No, that doesn't work. When did we stop wearing hats, then, would you say?
1970s, 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, and cars were very popular before then.
Yeah. But they didn't have the low roofs and the headrests.
They did.
So you could wear a big hat in them.
Do you think?
Yeah.
A 1960s car didn't have a low roof and a headrest?
Well, you're not going to fit like a top hat in a little Mini, are you?
No, but you could wear a flat cap.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no need to be aggressive. I don't think it's going to be cars. I don't think cars will be the answer to this question. How near the roof is your head normally when you're in a car? You could easily wear a hat in a car.
You get a little baseball cap, yeah, but not like a big top-out bowler hat or something.
Well, okay. I mean, it could be. It's something to do with a motor car. But
I know that's definitely why, like, trilbies were invented.
So that you could wear it in a car?
Yeah. Then it wouldn't put in the headrest.
Yeah, but that's not a reason why we've stopped wearing hats. That's why we changed from one hat to another hat.
Well, it's like businessmen didn't need to wear a hat on the way to work because they just drove there.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing for the average person, hairstyles are just more of a thing with the culture.
Could be. Yeah, I mean, it just could just be. I mean, it is just the ebb and flow of fashion as well, isn't it? It's like beards. You could have asked the question 20 years ago, why don't men have beards anymore? And now, of course, lots of men do have beards. Hardly anyone had a beard when I was a kid. I remember the friends of my dad's friends or my friends' dads who had beards. I could count them on one hand. In fact, I could still tell you now who had them. Whereas now, almost everyone's got a beard or has had a beard or has played with a beard. Toyed with a beard. Played with a beard sounds a bit weird. That's what I do in all my clips. I'm always playing with my beard. OK, yeah, I'll give you a round of applause. That might well be the answer. And you've thought it through and I like it. Well played. But there might be room for more. Ben's in Greenwich, and we'll find out what his question is after the very latest headlines with Amelia Cox.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:34. Why do drinks get sweeter as they warm up? So a cold drink left on a table or a shelf will, if returned to later, have warmed up a little bit, and it will be sweeter than it was before. We've done the Glastonbury question rather well. Why is Wimbledon referred to by its postcode, SW19, in a way that no other sporting venue is? Why did we stop wearing hats? There's room for other answers on that, but I suspect the motor car has played a part in it. Why is the Army not royal when the Air Force and the Navy are? I think I've actually got that right, but we'll see if there's room for improvement. Why did Hugh's baguette dry out while his sliced loaf got mouldy? 03456060973. And can scientists accurately predict flying ant day? Ben's in Greenwich. Ben, question or answer?
Hi, James. A question, please.
Carry on.
We'd love to know why do tennis balls come in air pressurised cans? We've just started playing tennis, and it's the one thing we can't figure out. We're just like, why?
How are you getting on?
All right. Yeah, we're quite enjoying it.
It's great, isn't it? I played on Tuesday at 5 o'clock in that heat, and I don't think I thought I was going to die at one point. I was chasing after a ball. I thought, what the hell am I doing out? Anyway, I love tennis.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But we just thought the only reason why it could come in air pressurised can is for the smell. But surely that can't be it.
We love the smell, love the sound as well. It's even nicer than cracking open the top of a coffee jar, isn't it? I know this, but only because it's come up before.
Go on.
And the answer is that the pressure inside the ball will diminish with time. So you know that they're not as bouncy even after 2 or 3 uses. Well, they change them in the course of a game at Wimbledon, don't they? In the course of a single game, because it would have lost some of its pressure. So if it was in a normal tube, in an unpressurised container, then it would be some of the gas inside would be seeping out through it's not really semi-permeable, but it's not airtight. It would be getting a little bit softer, so that by the time it got delivered to the shop or the stadium or the court where you were playing, it would be measurably less bouncy than it was when it left the factory. So if you put it in a pressurised tube, so the pressure on the outside of the ball is the same as the pressure on the inside, then it is not going to sag, I suppose, is the word that we're looking for. It's not going to sag or get less bouncy.
I'll give you that.
It's a good one, isn't it? I'm not clever. Someone has done it before. It comes up every year, I think. It's a Wimbledon-related question, isn't it? But that's your answer, and that's why and the proof of the pudding, in a way, is the fact that they change balls halfway through a game. So you and me would still consider those balls to be brand new. But for a Wimbledon player, they'll know. A professional tennis player will know that it's become a bit less bouncy than it was before, which is why, of course, you have to show the new balls to your opponent. Just tennis balls are the only balls you should ever show to your opponent, and that's because the serve is likely to come at you that little bit harder than the last one did, or the last game did, because the ball is bouncier. That's good. That.
That is good.
Yeah, nice one. We must have a game. We must have a game, Ben.
Yeah, let's. Greenwich Park. Come down.
There it is. A date. It's a date. Round of applause for me, please, Keith. Thank you very much. Johnny's in Ipswich. Johnny, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, Johnny.
The hat question.
Oh, yes.
It came about because of the presidential campaign of JFK in 1960.
Really?
Yes. His wife was very fashionable, and she decided that she didn't want him to have brill-creamed hair, so he had quite bouffant hair, and it would have been a shame to cover it with a hat.
Qualifications?
Just amateur historian, JFK researcher.
I quite like that. So, because she was a genuine fashion pioneer.
She was.
And she advised her husband not to wear a hat and to have nice hair. And because he was such an iconic figure, men around the world stopped wearing hats.
That's right. And if you look at some of the photos of the time, and for example, look at the earlier presidents, they all wore hats in public.
FDR, I've got a hat, yeah, you're right. And what year was that? So, and that would
1960.
Fit. So it would fit with the sort of sense that was roughly when it stopped.
Yes.
Has anyone else ever had a fashion impact on that kind of scale, I wonder?
Well, fashion is a rather strange thing that I've never really understood.
No, me neither. But I like that. That could be the cars.
One person does it, and then it just catches on.
Yeah. Can I ask your opinion about something?
Please do.
So, Kevin, every few minutes, every time another caller comes on and references the hat question, Kevin has texted me, and he must have sent the same text 10 times now. He's texting me, it's federal law, but he spelt it as in fedora. So, fedora law. And I've completely ignored that because I think it's a really poor joke. I just want to know whether...
I think he was very wise.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. Two heads are better than one. I suppose, Johnny, I was looking for a second opinion, and now we can agree that Kevin's joke is far too bad to possibly ever mention on the radio. I can't think of anything else that has had that kind of impact fashion-wise. Thank you. Round of applause for Johnny. I like that one. Christos is in St Leonard's. Christos, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on.
Pleasure. So scientists can predict when the ants are going to swarm. And this week, they did swarm where I live.
And did anyone predict it?
It was predicted on the news.
No, it wasn't. Was it?
It was predicted. Like your earlier caller said, it was predicted, and it is predictable. They're fairly predictable creatures. They run to a very regular timetable over the year. They do an annual mating flight. They prepare and grow young queens and young princes, and they wait for the summer months for the...
But there's loads of different ones.
Particularly the ants that we have here are Lasius niger, black ants. They're the ants that we experience. And this week, the temperature reached the threshold for their mating flight, which is 25 degrees centigrade.
You're reading this?
I'm not reading it. I'm an amateur myrmecologist, James.
Bless you.
I've been keeping black ants for over 20 years.
Fair enough. But I don't think... so you can predict it in a region. You can't... There's no such thing as National Flying Ant Day.
Well, it doesn't really work in National Flying Ant Day, but if the ambient temperature hits 25, that will trigger the first swarm. Okay. There will be several swarms over the summer.
That's what I thought.
They don't use up all of their ants in one go.
So it
this
was
week.
So it's been particularly hot, so it's all gone a bit early.
I mean, this is early for this year. This is hottest June day on record.
Because it's usually towards the end of July.
It's usually towards mid-end of July. Yeah. It did come early this year, wave 1, and I did collect 4 queens.
Did you?
For a new ant colony.
Oh.
So they were there, and there were so many of them, it's difficult to choose which 4 to pick.
An amateur myrmecologist.
I've been keeping black ants for 20 years.
MYRMO. MYRMOCO myrmecologist?
That's correct.
Yeah, I thought it came up in a crossword the other day, actually. Well, except it was what does a myrmecologist study? which was quite an easy crossword answer, really, ant. But you needed some of the other letters in order to get it.
You certainly would need some of the letters to fill that in. I did once cause infamy in the ant community by observing over several months that black ants particularly do make and use tools, which caused a right kerfuffle.
Well, what a moment, though. Did you get anything named after you?
No, but I did pass the information to quite a well-known ant expert in Belgium, and she said, I will take that up and I will experiment and put it across a few different colonies. So I've made my little contribution to science in a very amateur way.
I like that.
And to be honest, I love ants. I think they're such a foundation of our planet. And the other amazing thing about ants is that they developed agriculture millions of years before we were in a blink in the eye of nature. They farm aphids, ranch them just like we ranch cattle. They keep them, look after them, milk them. And obviously the leafcutter ants, they grow and cultivate fungus.
An ant can milk an aphid?
Yeah, they tap it on the bum and it gives a little pooey dewdrop of pure sugar. And they look after them. If you ever watch very closely next time you see a load of aphids on a plant, just watch out for the ants that are looking after them. And if you look very carefully, they tap them with their antenna on the bum, and the aphid does a little pooey dewdrop, which they drink.
My first band was called the Pooey Dewdrops.
How many first bands have you had? I thought it was the
what was it?
Something about bees and hoovers.
Yeah, it was actually. It was the specialist bee hoovers. I love that, and I love your enthusiasm. Actually, I could listen to you for a lot longer, but I can't because I'm going to be late for the break. But I can.
James, I've tried to answer your questions before and I never get through, so I'm very, very pleased.
Well, you could become our resident ant expert with a little bit of luck. You've certainly got yourself a round of applause, and I'd say you were in with a very good chance of winning a board game as well. What a time.
I'm a very, very keen games player too.
Oh, look at this. He's giving it up now. It's 12:45.
James O'Brien on LBC.
It is 12:48, and we still have quite a lot to answer, but let's crack on. Paul's in Hemel Hempstead. Paul, question or answer?
Question, thank you.
Carry on, Paul.
Long-time caller, first-time listener as well.
Carry on.
So I wanted to ask you why washing machines lie.
Wow.
What's the point? What do they get out of it? Are they part of the WhatsApp group? Do they all talk amongst themselves? I just don't understand. They say 45 minutes for a wash, and you come back in an hour, and it's not ready.
Are you sure? Are you sure your washing machine's not on the blink?
No, it was like 45 minutes the other day, and it had 10 minutes to go. I went and got a beer, got a smoke, went for Jimmy Riddle, came back, and it was still 7 minutes. I'm like, this is impossible, and I just don't know why. And what do they really get out of it?
I don't know if the premise of your question holds. The timings of a wash are. I mean, I think we can come. I can put your mind at rest on one front. It's not deliberate. There's no psychological master plan from the washing machine.
I did wonder.
No, well, you would. But I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to wait to see if my inbox explodes with people going, yes, my washing machine also lies to me. But at the moment, it might just be you. I mean, are you?
I mean, if it takes an hour, just tell us it's an hour.
Yeah, but they do tell you it's an hour.
Yeah, but I mean, mine says 45, and it's always more than an hour. I can't explain it.
What make is it?
It's a white one.
Oh no, he's got it. Mine lies. Every washing machine I've had has been the same, James. Your caller is right. The washing machine lies. Mine lies. It's a genuine question. It's 1,000% true. It really bothers me. Oh, my inbox has gone. It's gone bonkers. Well,
if
Annabelle,
it was going to be an hour, just tell us it's an hour.
No, I know. My washing machine lies. They all lie. You can stop messaging me, Matt, now to tell me that your washing machine lies. It's going to start interfering with Sheila Fogarty's show. Funnily enough, my washer always finishes ahead of time. It's still lying.
Oh, I need to get one of those then.
Why? It's still lying.
Yeah, well, I guess
thought it was the truth you wanted, not a quicker wash. Make your mind up.
Fighting for the truth, James.
Right,
literally.
Yes. You can't handle the truth.
I can't handle it.
Right, we'll find out. Okay, well, at least we'll try. We're short of time now. Unless we go on long... No, stop it. Carry on. Thank you, Paul. Chris, Walthamstow, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on.
So it's the sweet question you had about the drinks. So,
yes.
Yes, so my sort of knowledge and experience about this is specifically to do with milk-based drinks like coffees, flat white latte. So,
are you a barista?
I was a barista for a long time, and I've got my own business now, fixing machines all over London.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. So, what they have when you're making those sort of drinks is there's something called the sweet spot. That is around 60 degrees, like top 50s. And essentially what's happening at that temperature is the sweet molecules are most soluble. So essentially the perception is when you drink your coffee, it tastes sweeter. So that's the...
I love it. So it would also apply at lower temperatures as well. If it warmed up a bit, it would get sweeter.
Yeah.
So it's not... because it's more soluble. So the drink... Yeah, so the drink is sweeter, even though the sugar content is the same.
Exactly, yeah. So it's the same.
So if you could invent non-soluble sugar and put it in a glass and drank it, it wouldn't actually taste very sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it'd be quite gritty as well, but that's beside the point.
Probably.
But in fact, the more of it that has actually dissolved, as opposed to being suspended, the sweeter it would be. Qualifications, I mean, hot milk expert.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that answer. Of course it does. It makes perfect sense. Have a round of applause on me.
Thank you.
No, thank you. 12:52 is the time. Frank's in Carlisle. Frank, question or answer?
It's an answer. It's about the washing machine.
Oh, marvellous. Carry on.
So when they lie twice. At the start, they assume that a run will take like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But if you've only half filled it, it'll revise that and revise it downwards because there's less stuff to wash. And at the end, when it's spinning, some things dry faster than others. So you might have had it where you like take stuff out of a washing machine, all your t-shirts are wet, but your hoodie things dry.
Correct.
So some things dry easier than others.
Yes.
And as it's spinning, it's measuring how much water's coming out in the spin. And if it needs to keep going, it keeps going.
So it's very ballpark at the best of times.
Yeah, they've all got like a standard setting, but the spin at the end, it'll spin till it's actually dry rather than spin till 10 minutes are up and then just say, yeah, I've had enough now.
Quite lovely answer. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, actually. Flipping it. I thought Paul was a bit bonkers, but it turns out all washing machines are liars.
The newer they are, the more likely they are to lie because they revise what they're doing to get the job done properly and economically.
Remember that bloke who used to interfere with Sheila's show down at Parliament go, oh, washing machines are liars, all politicians are... Qualifications?
I used to work for a company that sold washing machines.
That'll do. Round of applause for Frank. Ian's in Aberdeen. Ian, question or answer?
Answer, James.
Carry on, Ian.
The mould question on bread.
Oh, yes.
3 things determine whether mould will grow on bread. 1, temperature. 2, humidity. And 3, sugar levels.
And the baguette is not going to have much moisture or sugar in it.
Absolutely.
And you slice loafies.
Baguettes around without any covering for a good reason, because they want them to be crisp.
Yes.
But a supermarket bread is usually in a plastic cover.
Correct.
And if it's very moist anyway, because people want it to be soft. It's got all kinds of additives that keep it soft.
Yep.
And if it's soft, it'll go mouldy.
There it is.
Because, particularly in a warm place.
What was the first one again?
Sugar and temperature and humidity.
That was it. Yeah. So it all. So humidity and temperature would kind of operate in tandem with each other, wouldn't they? Because of the bag. I said the bag actually. I said the bag would be a big part of it. But I missed out on the sugar.
The reason you get baguettes in paper bags rather than plastic bags is to try and reduce the humidity.
So that they stay crispy. So that they stay crispy. That's a beautiful answer. Qualifications?
I'm a home cheesemaker. I'm in the middle of making a batch of my version of Roquefort right now as we speak. So I play with mould.
How big is a batch?
I got 6 litres of milk this morning, so not that big. Usually 10, sometimes 20.
And how long before you can eat it?
About 6 weeks.
Really? Where do you keep it?
In a cheese fridge.
You do have a specialist cheese fridge. So it's not a cheese fridge. It's not like a B. Hoover. It's a fridge that you happen to keep cheese in.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's a sauna during the winter.
I was going to say.
Sauna.
And do you eat it all yourself, or do you sell it a bit?
No, I give it to people.
You're
not allowed to sell it.
It's just a hobby. Of course you're not. No, it's just a nice hobby.
Yeah, it's a hobby.
Cheese making. You know what they say. Fun. You know what they say, Ian. Blessed are the cheesemakers.
I do indeed. I've even written a book about it.
What's it called?
Home cheese making for beginners.
What's the book
called?
Home
cheese making, mould to mould.
Home cheese making for beginners.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I never... have a round of applause.
Thank you.
That's lovely. I've got to be quite peckish now. I love a bit of blue chill, a bit of Roquefort. Stu's in Plymouth. Stu, question or answer?
I have an answer for you, James.
Carry on, Stu.
It's the British Army, why it's not the Royal Army. British Army is made up of a number of regiments and corps, all have their own specific roles and responsibilities and duties. Some of them have the royal prefix as a form of honour that's being bestowed onto them by the monarchy, and others don't. It's usually for some. It's not like a battle honour, but it's usually for something they've done in the past, such as how long they've been going. For example, recently the Army Physical Training Corps, I think they made a major milestone, an anniversary, and as a kind of a reward, they were made the Royal Army Physical Training Corps. But some of the newer regiments, like the Parachute Regiment, the SAS, and indeed my corps that I was in, they're too new and they don't actually have the royal prefix.
That'll do. Qualifications?
Former soldier.
Round of applause for Stu. I think you might be a parallel explanation as well, involving Oliver Cromwell and the new model army and the king and the nobles and the parliament and whatever. But I like that. That was also, straight from the horse's mouth. Thank you, Stu. And Nick, have we done everything then? Have we got washing machines, flying ants, bread, army, hats, Glastonbury, sweet drink? We're going to do a clean sweep if this one is the SW19 one. Are we? Keith, you normally keep track of these matters. I did tennis balls. Yeah. Okay. Next in Tulse Hill. Nick, question or answer?
It's a rubbish theory about Wimbledon, but it might work.
That's it. I like the way you've sold that. People are all ears now. Yeah. Go on.
Okay. So when you go to Wimbledon, you actually get off at Southfields Tube, and actually Wimbledon is sort of really in Southfields. And I'd always felt that anyway. Then why is it called Wimbledon? Because it's really in Southfields.
Yes.
But when you look at the postcode, obviously Wimbledon is in SW19, and so is Southfields.
Right.
And then if you rechristen it SW19, then you don't offend people in Southfields, but also you don't offend people in Wimbledon because it still is in SW19 anyway.
Yeah. Absolute nonsense. But I mean, but compelling.
Okay.
Well, because somebody somewhere decided to do it, and it's unlikely that they did it for that reason.
But when you go to Twickenham, you go to Twickenham Station, you're in Twickenham and you're in Twickenham.
It's all about Twickenham. It's all about Twickenham.
You're in Southfields.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Well, you go to the House of Commons, you might get off at Waterloo, not necessarily Westminster. You might get off at St James's Park. You might get a bus. And so they say SW1. I'm going to give you a round of applause because then we can have a clean sweep. Can I have
the question?
What?
Can I have the question or not?
No, it's Sheila's here now. The show's over. This is it. The show's over. The time has come. It's time to face the final curtain. But I'll squeeze one in then.
Isn't Southfield's SW18?
Oh, stop it. Honestly,
I think
you have to complicate everything. That's something to do. What have I got to do?
I've got friends who live there and their postcode is SW18.
Well, then, Nick, give me that back. I want that back, that round of applause. You can't have that. You can't have it. I think there's just one contender, isn't there? Christos gets the game. Christos, who will forevermore be known as the Ant-Man. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player and the new LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news and opinion, put your news categories in the order you want. You can pause and rewind live radio. You can listen to a range of podcasts. You can download the all-new official LBC app for free from your app store now. Coming up at 4 on LBC, Tom Swarbrick. But now, as you may have gathered, it's time for Sheila Fogarty.
It's the London A to Z.
James O'Brien on LBC.